Chapter 2540. Before the two of them could react, the black gigantic axe slashed down once more, as though it would not stop until the two of them were dead. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening sound, the ears of the hell-suppressing tripod pierced through the bottom of the coffin, and cracks appeared on the ground. Suddenly, Wu Dao's true body and Demoness Ji's figures sank. The expression of Wu Dao's true body changed. Suddenly, he realized that there seemed to be another world beneath the tomb that was not real. There was no time to think, as the black gigantic axe could slash down at any moment. Taking a deep breath, Wu Dao's true body exerted strength in his legs and stomped his feet. Rumble! Boom! The ground beneath their feet had long been smashed into pieces by the hell-suppressing tripod. Now that Wu Dao's true body stomped on it, it collapsed instantly, and the two of them fell rapidly with the hell-suppressing tripod. The surroundings were dark. However, after entering this space, Wu Dao's true body and Demoness Ji felt the power that was suppressing their essence spirits dissipate at the same time. The underground space of the tomb seemed to have escaped the range of the Fiend Emperor's tomb, and divine powers and secret skills could be released. The two of them stabilized their bodies hurriedly, and Wu Dao's true body was relieved as well. As long as he was free from the restrictions of the Fiend Emperor's tomb, he could use the hell-suppressing tripod to break through the void and escape with Demoness Ji at any time. However, he was in no hurry. Instead, he put away the hell-suppressing tripod and looked up through the hole in the tomb. The strange thing was that the black gigantic axe that was incomparably ferocious earlier on suddenly stopped at the hole in the tomb and did not continue its pursuit. After pausing for a moment, the black gigantic axe turned around and disappeared. The actions of the black gigantic axe caused Wu Dao's true body to frown. He found it strange and felt uneasy. Beneath the tomb, the surroundings were pitch black. Even with the vision of Wu Dao's true body, he could only see about 10 feet in front of him. Although he could release his spirit consciousness, the range of his detection could not exceed 10 feet. The two of them descended slowly. They could not see anything around them, and it was extremely quiet and dead silent. Thankfully, the two of them landed on the ground again before long, and felt slightly relieved. What was that destruction axe just now? Demoness Ji could not help but ask. To think that he could release such a terrifying amount of power right after escaping after being buried for tens of millions of years. It probably has something to do with the apocalyptic demon diagram. Wu Dao's main body pondered for a moment before replying. You once said that when the World Devastation Devil Emperor died, his skin scattered and formed the 18 incomplete pictures. My guess is that the World Devastation Demon Emperor's aura is still lingering on the demon diagram. That's why the guards in the ancient city did not dare to attack us. Only when the destruction axe sensed the aura of the World Devastator Devil Emperor did it fully awaken. Demoness Ji was still confused as she asked. However, why would the destruction axe attack us? Did the mutation of the apocalyptic demon diagram draw us here to awaken this emperor weapon? Wu Dao shook his head. He also had many doubts about this matter. However, he could guess one thing. If nothing unexpected happened, the apocalyptic demon diagram in the hands of Demon King Song Kong, and the others should lead them to the location of the other emperor weapon, the Warfire Spear. As for those demon kings, they would have to face the attacks of the Warfire Spear as well. The two of them walked together and scouted the area ahead slowly. Suddenly, Su Zimo thought of something and asked, Right, I noticed that your movement technique is a little special, and your bewitchment technique is even stronger than before. Did you obtain some sort of opportunity? Ever since Qinglian's main body ascended, she had obtained countless opportunities and fortuitous encounters before she managed to cultivate to a rank 7 heavenly immortal. However, Demoness Ji's cultivation was at rank 5 heavenly immortal. It was clear that the opportunities she obtained were unimaginable as well. Of course, what surprised Wu Dao's main body even more was that her movement technique was extremely similar to the black-robed woman he faced when he was undergoing the 10th level true martial heavenly tribulation. Demoness Ji nodded. I obtained the inheritance memories of an ancient emperor. Wu Dao's main body was speechless for a moment. Qinglian's main body merely obtained the Hell Suppression Cauldron and the forbidden secret manuals within. As for Demoness Ji, she obtained the inheritance memories of an ancient emperor directly. Qinglian's main body was cultivating the perfection of Wisdom Nirvana Sutra, and often encountered things that he could not understand. Up till now, he still had 2 secret skills that he could not comprehend completely. However, no one could explain it to him, and he could only figure it out and cultivate on his own. As for Demoness Ji, it was equivalent to an emperor imparting Dao techniques personally. How could her cultivation speed not be fast? May I know which emperor it is? Wu Dao's main body asked. Since ancient times, there weren't many great emperors recorded in the records. Up until now he had only heard of 2. Demoness Ji said, according to that emperor, she was from an extremely ancient era. You might not have heard of her before, but she was known as the 9 Netherworld Emperor. 9 Netherworld Emperor. Wu Dao's main body murmured softly and asked, is this 9 Netherworld Emperor a woman? Yes. Demoness Ji nodded and looked at Su Zimo in surprise. After all, it was truly difficult to link the title of the 9 Netherworld Emperor to a woman. Wu Dao's main body asked again, is this woman dressed in black and wielding a sword? How did you know? Demoness Ji's face was filled with disbelief. It was a coincidence that I was fortunate enough to witness this senior's glory back then. Wu Dao's main body did not explain in detail either. Demoness Ji said, this senior is a woman. Before she became an emperor, she was known as the 9 Netherworld Pure Maiden. The 9 Netherworld Pure Maiden Sutra that she created is one of the forbidden secret manuals. Wu Dao's main body nodded. It seemed like if nothing went wrong, Demoness Ji had already learned that forbidden secret manual. Right then, Demoness Ji was caught off guard and staggered, nearly falling. The martial Dao true body hurriedly supported her. What was that? Demoness Ji frowned slightly and looked down. She felt as though she had kicked something earlier on. On the ground beneath her feet, there was a dark yellow mound that looked extremely abrupt, like a grave. She harumphed softly and stomped down heavily, muttering, that's for tripping me. Right then, Demoness Ji paused in her actions and froze on the spot. Her flawless face was filled with fear and shock. What's wrong? Wu Dao's main body noticed Demoness Ji's abnormality. However, he did not think too much about it, and merely asked casually. After all, Demoness Ji was eccentric and playful. She might have been faking it on purpose. Just now someone blew on the back of my neck. Demoness Ji's voice trembled, and even sounded like she was about to cry. It was clear that she was extremely afraid, and her expression did not seem fake. However, Wu Dao's main body was not around, and did not sense any danger, nor did his spirit perception alert him. Hee. At this moment, an eerie laughter rang out from nowhere, right beside the 2 of them. Miss, you've stepped on my grave. Thank you. Lohangrink and Dolly creates miracles for their rewards. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2541. Accompanied by that sinister voice, a menacing face gradually appeared from the darkness behind Demoness Ji. Wu Dao's true body was alarmed. Without hesitation, he pulled Demoness Ji over and shielded her behind him, glaring at the figure that appeared slowly in the darkness with a grim expression. It looked like an old man covered in blood. His face was pale, and there was no hint of life in him. He was like a malevolent ghost. No matter what the old man's background was, the fact that he could hide from Wu Dao's true body's spirit perception was enough to alarm him and put him on guard. To think that 2 brats would come here. Hee. The old man let out an unpleasant laugh once more. His widened lips stretched to the back of his ears, as though his entire head was split into 2. Could he be a ghost immortal? Demoness Ji gradually calmed down and panted slightly, saying with a trembling voice, Ghost immortal? Wu Dao's true body's heart skipped a beat. Back in the Emperor Tomb, Qinglian's true body encountered a ghost immortal that was extremely strong and nearly died inside. Thankfully, he managed to survive with the help of his soul lamp. She continued. However, according to the inheritance memories that the 9 Netherworld Emperor gave me, the conditions for the formation of ghost immortals are extremely unique. At the very least, an Emperor Lord has to die. Only the powerful resentment of an emperor lord could turn into a ghost immortal. Back then, Qinglian's true body was only at the mystic immortal realm, and did not know much about ghost immortals. Neither was it accurate, and she only heard bits and pieces from Feng Zi. He merely thought that ghost immortals were formed from the accumulation of resentment of an expert, whose soul did not dissipate after death, and did not enter reincarnation. Furthermore, they cultivated sentience. To think that the prerequisite for the formation of ghost immortals was the death of an emperor lord. In that case, it could explain why there was such a ghost immortal in the emperor tomb. Legend has it that the formation of the emperor tomb was due to the death of an immortal emperor. Later on, other emperor lords took the risk to enter the emperor tomb, and were inevitably cursed and buried within. Demoness G continued. However, emperor lords are considered peak existences in the upper world, and it's extremely difficult for them to die, let alone die suddenly. How can there be an emperor lord here? At that point, Demoness G's voice stopped abruptly. She suddenly recalled that there was indeed an emperor buried here. The World Devastation Fiend Emperor. Could this be the final resting place of the World Devastation Devil Emperor? Wu Dao's original body naturally thought of the World Devastation Devil Emperor, but he was still a little confused. He always felt that the dark space here was incompatible with the great tomb of the Demon Emperor above, as if they were two different worlds. Above the tomb, within the range of the great tomb of the Devil Monarch, they couldn't release their heavenly grottos, and their secret arts were also sealed. But here the two of them were almost unaffected. At this moment, he didn't have the time to analyze it carefully. The ghost immortal opposite them suddenly took a deep breath at the two of them. Wu Dao's main body felt like he was in a trance. His essence spirit felt like it was being pulled out of his body by a powerful suction force. Fortunately, the power of the mask of Mo Luo burst forth and blocked his Yuan Shen, allowing him to regain his consciousness instantly. However, Demoness G's cultivation realm was insufficient, and she could not resist the devouring power at all. A wisp of her essence spirit left her body and flew towards the ghost immortal opposite her. The martial Dao primordial body's Dao arts were unable to cause any harm to these ghost immortals. However, he had a treasure on him that could kill a ghost immortal. Using his sleeves, Wu Dao's main body swept up a dim bronze lamp from his storage bag and smashed it towards the ghost immortal opposite him. Hee hee. The old man laughed strangely and reached out with his withered and rotten palm, grabbing towards the shabby bronze lamp. "Kid, you can't hurt me." "Ah." Before the old man could finish, he shrieked. It was too late for him to dodge and shake off the soul lamp. Right before Wu Dao's main body, the old man turned into streams of light and entered the bronze lamp, vanishing completely. There was clearly an additional layer of oil at the bottom of the bronze lamp. Back then, the ghost immortal in the emperor's tomb was almost sucked to death by the soul lamp merely by touching it with his walking stick. This ghost immortal, on the other hand, did not even have a chance to escape if he dared to grab it with his bare hands. Demoness G's essence spirit returned to her consciousness and looked in the direction where the old man disappeared with a lingering fear. She heaved a sigh of relief. To think that there would be a ghost immortal beneath this tomb chamber. I wonder what happened to the World Devastation Fiend Emperor back then for him to die here with such deep resentment. Something's not right. Wu Dao's main body put away the bronze lamp and murmured with a frown. "What's wrong?" Demoness G was puzzled. Wu Dao's main body said, "The tomb above the World Devastation Fiend Emperor's tomb is exquisitely set up. It's clear that he was prepared for this. If he died, why would he leave behind such a tomb?" As Wu Dao's main body said that, he swept his gaze and realized that Demoness G was looking behind him with a pale expression. In the darkness behind Wu Dao's main body, a figure appeared slowly and approached silently like a ghost. It was a menacing face that resembled a malevolent ghost. In the darkness, it opened its mouth and swallowed the head of Wu Dao's main body, another ghost immortal. Throughout the entire process, Wu Dao's main body's spirit perception did not react at all. "Hurry and run!" Demoness G shrieked and pounced towards the ghost immortal in the darkness behind Wu Dao's main body without hesitation. When Wu Dao's main body noticed Demoness G's odd expression, he realized that he was in immense danger. His surroundings were dark, and he might not be safe no matter where he hid. Wu Dao's main body reacted extremely quickly. With a shift of his spirit consciousness, he released a martial spirit fire that entered the soul lamp. Swoosh! Instantly, the soul lamp was ignited and burned with a tiny golden flame. The light spread and enveloped his surroundings. The ghost immortal hidden behind him was affected by the golden light, and seemed to be severely injured. Golden flames burst forth from his body, and spread from the inside out, unable to be extinguished. Soul! The ghost immortal only managed to say a single word before he was enveloped by the golden flames and devoured. His essence spirit was destroyed, and his soul dissipated into nothingness. Demoness Ji paused in her tracks and looked at everything in shock. She had not expected that the seemingly inconspicuous bronze lamp in the hands of Wu Dao's main body would possess such power. Ghost immortals did not have a true body, and were in reality formed from their souls and resentment. However, the soul lamp was the nemesis of these ghost immortals. Both Wu Dao's main body and Demoness Ji's essence spirits were in their consciousnesses, and were protected by their physical bodies. Their soul lamps were lit and shone with a golden light that did not harm them at all. What's going on? Why are there two ghost immortals here? Should we hurry and leave? Demoness Ji's face was pale and she felt uneasy, feeling even more sinister than before. The surrounding darkness seemed to be filled with an indescribable chilling aura. With a grim expression, Wu Dao's main body rolled up the soul lamp in his hands, and tossed it into the surrounding darkness. The golden light dispersed the darkness, and dozens of ghostly figures appeared instantly. They let out a series of tragic cries and squeezed to retreat, trying to avoid the light of the soul lamp. When she saw that, Demoness Ji's expression changed and she shuddered. There were dozens of ghost immortals hiding in the darkness. Chapter 2542. Some of the ghost immortals were slower in dodging, and were struck by the golden light of the soul lamp. Instantly, their bodies burned with golden flames, and they were reduced to ashes. Wu Dao's true body felt his heart skip a beat. Out of caution, he had probed the darkness over there. To think that he would see dozens of ghost immortals. Wu Dao's true body's gaze was grim, as he rolled up the soul lamp, and circled the darkness around him. A series of tragic cries could be heard from the surrounding darkness. In all directions, ghostly figures could be seen fleeing in panic, wherever the light of the soul lamp shone. Psst! This time round, even Wu Dao's true body felt a chill run down his spine, and his hair stood on end. When he circled the soul lamp earlier on, he had seen hundreds of ghost immortals. It was hard to imagine that there would be so many ghost immortals hiding in the darkness around them. They were silent and waiting for an opportunity to strike. If not for the soul lamp in his hand, the two of them would have been torn apart by the ghost immortals. What made him even more shocked and puzzled was the fact that there were so many ghost immortals in this tomb. What kind of place was this? Could it be that the hundreds of ghost immortals were formed from the corpses of emperor lords? Could it be that there were hundreds of emperor lords buried in this tomb chamber? That conjecture was way too shocking. Even Wu Dao's true body felt chills run down his spine when he thought about it. At the side, Demoness Ji was already dumbfounded, and was so scared that she could not speak. Hundreds of ghost immortals meant that hundreds of emperor lords had died here. What did that mean? The martial Dao body took a deep breath, calmed his mind, and quickly calmed down. No matter what, he had to get rid of those ghost immortals first. Otherwise, they would be too much of a threat to the two of them, if they were allowed to lurk in the darkness. At that thought, Wu Dao's true body rolled up the soul lamp, and placed it in front of him. Then he blew hard at the oil in the lamp. The oil of the soul lamp splattered everywhere and scattered on the ground, dispersing the surrounding darkness instantly. Soul lamp! It's the soul lamp! Many ghost immortals shrieked, and fled into the depths of the darkness. Many ghost immortals were engulfed by the golden flames, and were quickly incinerated into nothingness. Wu Dao's true body brought Demoness Ji along as he swept up his soul lamp, and chased after the remaining ghost immortals. As the two of them continued onward, the light of the soul lamps dispelled the darkness. They could see that the ground beneath their feet was covered in dirt. Although there were no tombstones or markings, both of them could tell that these mounds were simple tombs. The space of this tomb was not too big. The terrain was long like a coffin. Hundreds of ghost immortals had nowhere to hide in the coffin-shaped tomb. Soon, Wu Dao caught up with them and used his soul lamp to kill them all. The souls of these imperial emperors did not disperse. They gathered their resentment and formed a strange life form like the ghost immortal. They were trapped here and could not see the light of day all year round, unable to enter the cycle of reincarnation. The fact that Wu Dao's true body had killed him was a form of relief for them. After killing all the ghost immortals here, the soul lamp absorbed a large number of souls and was filled with oil. The range of its light expanded significantly and illuminated the entire space. Wu Dao's true body and demoness Ji turned back and saw that the path they came from was filled with inconspicuous tombs. However, they were filled with an indescribable might and shock. The tomb was not big, but there were more than 1,000 tombs buried here. Furthermore, all of those tombs might be the tombs of imperial emperors. Not all imperial emperors would transform into ghost immortals after their deaths. Therefore, although there were more than 1,000 imperial emperor tombs here, there were only a few hundred ghost immortals. Even so, this scene was a huge blow to Wu Dao's true body and demoness Ji. Who would have thought that there would be a tomb of emperors beneath the tomb of the fiend emperor? What happened back then that caused more than 1,000 imperial emperors to die here? If all of those imperial emperor experts came from the same era, it meant that more than half of the imperial emperors of that era were buried here. What was going on with this tomb of emperors? Back then, the world devastation fiend emperor built his tomb above this place. Did he know about the situation below? In the mind of Wu Dao's true body, he could not help but recall the upheaval that immortal Yunju mentioned to Qinglian's true body about. At that time, Yunju was also not sure if this turmoil really existed, because almost all the records and traces of this turmoil had been erased, leaving only some vague records. Could the sudden deaths of the emperors be related to that upheaval? Countless doubts flashed through the minds of Wu Dao's true body and demoness Ji. The two of them stood on the spot and could not recover for a long time. Demoness Ji seemed to have thought of something as she frowned and tried her best to recall. Wu Dao's true body turned around and looked at the end of the tomb, where there was a thick stone tablet that was dozens of feet tall. The stone tablet looked ancient and heavy, filled with a deathly aura of time. It was blank, and there was nothing on it. A thought flashed through the mind of Wu Dao's true body as he looked at the gigantic stone tablet. Although there were no traces of the stone tablet, it gave him the feeling that it was more like a tombstone that was suppressing this place. He did not know who set up this tombstone. However, it could solve a question in his mind. Perhaps, the existence of this tombstone was the reason why hundreds of ghost immortals were suppressed here and could not escape. Right then, a loud bang sounded from the east of the tomb, as though a huge battle was breaking out above. Rumble! Boom! The tomb of the fiend emperor above was shaking violently and could collapse at any moment. Wu Dao's true body and demoness Ji were hiding in the tomb chamber at the bottom and were not affected. If I'm not wrong, Song Kong and the others must have discovered the warfire spear. Wu Dao's true body murmured softly. Right then in the skies outside, dark clouds covered the sky and Fiend Qi lingered. A pair of gigantic eyes were hidden in the clouds, staring at the backside Een mountain range and emitting a terrifying aura. The fiends near the backside Een mountain range were shocked and knelt on the ground, trembling. Even the Grotto Heaven Realm Fiend Kings did not dare to hesitate when they sensed the aura from the skies. They knelt on the ground with a respectful expression. Even they could not withstand such an aura. The birth of the Fiend Emperor. Who killed my son? Fiend Emperor Ling Zhao's voice was filled with suppressed anger, causing one's heart to tremble. His voice was like thunder, reverberating in the skies of the Fiend territory. In the tomb of the Fiend Emperor, Fiend King Song Kong and the others had just entered a tomb chamber when something happened. The warfire spear appeared and attacked them fiercely. Fiend Emperor Ling Zhao's gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the tomb and see this scene. Suddenly, a gigantic palm reached out from the clouds, covering the skies and grabbing towards the tomb. Boom! Fiend Emperor Ling Zhao's palm almost uprooted the entire backside Yin mountain range. The tomb that was already on the verge of collapse collapsed instantly. The might of the Fiend Emperor was terrifying. Chapter 2543. Wu Dao's true body summoned the Hell Suppression Cauldron and prepared to break through the void to leave with Demoness Ji. Given the methods of the Fiend Emperor, the two of them could not hide for long. If they were discovered by Fiend Emperor Ling Xiao, even if Wu Dao's true body could break through the void, he might not be able to return to the Avicii Hell under the nose of Fiend Emperor Ling Xiao. Given the strength displayed by the Fiend Emperor earlier on, Wu Dao's true body did not doubt that Fiend Emperor Ling Xiao would be able to intercept him and capture the two of them back, even if he entered the spatial tunnel. Right then, Demoness Ji suddenly said, "I seem to have remembered something." "What?" Wu Dao's true body asked instinctively. Demoness Ji said sternly, "The tomb beneath the world devastation Fiend Emperor should be the tomb of a great emperor." Wu Dao's true body's heart skipped a beat. Prior to this, who would have thought that there would be a tomb of a great emperor hidden beneath the tomb of the world devastation Fiend Emperor in the depths of Backshade Mountain? However, thinking about it from another perspective, perhaps only a great emperor would be able to make 1,000 emperor monarchs' burial mounds be buried with him. However, he did not know what sort of existence this great emperor was in the past for him to be so terrifying as to kill so many emperor lords. "Who is this great emperor?" Wu Dao's true body asked. Demoness Ji pursed her lips slightly and hesitated, as though she was wary of something. Right then, a loud bang sounded from the tomb of the Fiend Emperor above. Immediately after, a beam of fire surged into the skies with a resplendent glow, charging towards Fiend Emperor Ling Xiao, who was in the clouds. The beam of fire emitted a scorching and terrifying aura, and the power it burst forth could withstand the might of the Fiend Emperor and go against the momentum. The vast and majestic power even tore the void apart, leaving clear cracks in it. How dare an ownerless weapon be so brazen? Fiend Emperor Ling Xiao harumphed coldly, and a saber shrouded in fiend chi appeared in his palm. It descended from the skies, as though it was going to split the heavens into two. Clang! Demon Emperor Ling Xiao's black saber struck the fiery light, revealing the true form of the fiery light. It was the War Fire Spear. Demon Emperor Ling Xiao was struck by the War Fire Spear, and his body shook violently. He revealed his true form and stood in the sky with a hint of shock in his eyes. Boom! The War Fire Spear fell to the ground and pierced through the earth. Huge spiderweb-like cracks appeared in the surroundings as the earth quaked and the mountains shook. On the battle spear, the flames burned even brighter. Within the raging flames, the War Fire Spear was burning red all over. It was almost transparent, and its aura was still rising. Wu Dao's true body and Demoness Ji exchanged glances, both feeling shocked. Who would have thought that the monarch armament, which had been buried for tens of millions of years, would be able to unleash such terrifying power as soon as it was reborn? Song Kong and the other demon kings were also shocked as they watched the battle from below. This kind of battle, they could not intervene at all. How is this possible? Demon Emperor Ling Xiao was expressionless, but his heart was in turmoil. It was merely an emperor armament. Even if the spirit consciousness within was not destroyed, and no one was controlling it, there was no way it could release such power. Your master has already been dead for tens of millions of years. How dare you defy my heavenly might with a mere weapon? Demon Emperor Ling Xiao stared at the blazing spear on the ground and shouted, "I'm here. Why don't you submit to me now? Wherever the flames of war reach, it shall be my territory." All of a sudden, a deep voice sounded from the ruins of the Fiend Emperor's tomb. It was filled with endless might and could not be defied. Demoness Ji's heart skipped a beat as she suddenly said, "Those were the words of the world devastation demon emperor back then. How could?" She did not continue speaking, nor did she dare to continue thinking about it. When he heard that, Demon Emperor Ling Xiao's expression turned grim as he glared at the ruins of the Fiend Emperor's tomb and said coldly, "Stop pretending. Who are you? Why don't you show yourself?" Back then, whenever the world devastation Demon Emperor conquered a territory, he would throw out the War Fire Spear first. The living beings in this territory only had two choices. They could either submit or flee. If they resisted, the axe of destruction would descend and countless living beings would be massacred with blood flowing like rivers. That action earlier on was indeed the World Devastation Demon Emperor's style of doing things. However, without witnessing it personally, Demon Emperor Ling Xiao did not believe that the World Devastation Demon Emperor could survive until now. The lifespans of Emperor Lords and Thearchs were both tens of millions of years. Even the so-called eternal Thearchs could not live for tens of millions of years. How dare you bark in front of me, when you've only cultivated half of my Fiend Sutra? The deep voice sounded from the ruins of the tomb once more. However, that sentence revealed an even greater piece of information. It was horrifying. The World Devastation Fiend Sutra was created by the person who spoke. In that case, the identity of the owner of that voice was obvious. When Demon Emperor Ling Xiao heard that, he felt a little guilty as he stared fixedly at the ruins of the tomb, with a bewildered expression. Rumble! In the ruins of the tomb, countless boulders were sent flying as a tall and burly figure slowly stood up from the ruins. His black hair danced in the wind, his eyes were blood red, and he held a huge black axe in his hand. Although this figure was standing in the ruins of the tomb, his aura was even more powerful and terrifying than Demon Emperor Ling Xiao in the sky. No one had seen the World Devastation Demon Emperor's appearance before. But when many people saw this figure, they could be sure that this was the ruthless person from tens of millions of years ago, the World Devastation Demon Emperor. Wu Dao's original body had also seen the Black Fiend diagram. The figure drawn on the diagram was almost the same as the World Devastation Demon Emperor in front of him. How was that possible? The World Devastation Demon Emperor was not dead? A demon emperor who should have died long ago had actually reappeared in the world after tens of millions of years. All the living beings in the vicinity of the Bakin mountain range were intimidated by the aura emitted from the World Devastation Demon Emperor, not daring to move at all. At this time, any unusual movement could lead to a fatal disaster. Between heaven and earth, it was as if the air had solidified, as if it had come to a standstill. In the tomb of the great emperor, Wu Dao's original body finally understood one thing. Why was there a situation where the grotto heavens of the immortal kings could not be released after they entered the demon cave? That was because the World Devastation Demon Emperor was not dead at all. The demon cave they had entered was actually a world created by the World Devastation Demon Emperor. In the world of the Demon Emperor, how could the grotto heavens of the immortal kings be released? And when he and Demoness Ji fell into the tomb below the tomb, they were restored to their original state and could release mystic arts, because the tomb they were in now was the tomb of a great emperor. Although the world of the Demon Emperor was powerful, its power could not cover the tomb of a great emperor. In the sky, Demon Emperor Ling Xiao looked down and met the gaze of the figure above the ruins of the tomb. At this moment, he seemed to have an illusion that the person below was looking down at him with cold eyes. He still could not believe it. The World Devastation Demon Emperor was actually still alive and had lived for tens of millions of years. Demon Emperor Ling Xiao could be sure of one thing. Even if the World Devastation Demon Emperor was still alive, he had not reached the level of a great emperor. Once he became a great emperor, all the emperors in the upper realm would be able to sense it. Chapter 2544. The two demon emperors faced off against each other. Demon Emperor Ling Xiao was still hesitating. He wanted to retreat, but he was worried that he would be deceived. After all, the World Devastator Demon Emperor had lived for tens of millions of years, and this was too unbelievable. At this moment, the World Devastator Demon Emperor slowly raised his head and looked at Demon Emperor Ling Xiao in the sky. You have lost your last chance to live. The World Devastator Demon Emperor waved his hand. The warfire spear that was stuck in the ground suddenly burst out, piercing through the void, and piercing toward Demon Emperor Ling Xiao. It reached him in an instant. This time, it was even more ferocious and murderous than the warfire spear. At this moment, Demon Emperor Ling Xiao felt the World Devastator Demon Emperor's murderous intent. He was also sure that the other party was the ruthless World Devastator from tens of millions of years ago. Whoosh! Demon Emperor Ling Xiao did not dare to hesitate. He opened up a world, and seemed to have merged with the world behind him. He held the saber with both hands and slashed at the warfire spear. Clang! There was a loud noise. Demon Emperor Ling Xiao's body shook violently. The world that he had just opened up was on the verge of collapsing. The World Devastator Demon Emperor's casual attack had such terrifying power, and was unstoppable. Boom! Before Demon Emperor Ling Xiao could catch his breath, the World Devastator Demon Emperor's huge body suddenly rose from the ground. He leaped and slashed at Demon Emperor Ling Xiao with his black giant axe. At the same time, a huge black hole appeared behind the World Devastator Demon Emperor. War flames lingered outside, and demonic aura surged inside. It was the world that he had condensed, the World Devastator Demon Cave. Demon Emperor Ling Xiao could not retreat. He could only frantically urge his primordial spirit to condense the world and raise the demonic saber above his head. Boom! Demon Emperor Ling Xiao's world could not resist at all. It was on the verge of collapse, and was directly swallowed by the World Devastator Demon Cave. Puchi! Under countless gazes, the warfire spear broke through the demonic saber and slashed Demon Emperor Ling Xiao's head. It did not stop and split him in half from top to bottom. Between heaven and earth, there was complete silence. Demon Emperor blood dyed half of the sky red. The warfire spear not only split Demon Emperor Ling Xiao's body, but it also instantly killed his primordial spirit. The Demon Emperor, who had created the greatest power in the demon domain, had dominated the world for many years. But who would have thought that just as he was born today, he would die on the spot, his blood staining the heavens? In fact, the reappearance of the World Devastator Demon Emperor had caused such a huge commotion that the other demon emperors, who were originally hiding in the demon domain, were also alarmed. However, these demon emperors did not reveal themselves. Instead, they hid in various corners of the demon domain and silently observed the situation. However, even they didn't expect that Demon Emperor Ling Xiao would be hacked to death by the World Devastator Demon Emperor within 3 moves. He didn't even have the chance to escape. One had to know that to cultivate to the Imperial Emperor level, unless the difference in strength was huge. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for him to die. Who would have thought that Demon Emperor Ling Xiao would die in less than 3 moves from the infamous Demon Emperor Ling Xiao? If you cultivate the demonic Tao, you shouldn't establish any faction. You'll be tied down by too many karmic ties. This time, if it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to avenge his son, he wouldn't have ended up like this. It's fate. He cultivated the World Devastator Demon Scripture to step into the Imperial realm. How could he resist the creator of the World Devastator Demon Scripture? Let's disperse. With this reappearance, I'm afraid the demon domain will become his world in the future. It's not just the demon domain. How can the Pure Lands and the 9 Heavens immortal realm be spared? Now that he has reappeared, he will definitely make a comeback and conquer the heavens. At that time, I'm afraid the 3,000 realms will be involved in the flames of war. These years there have been many chaotic events. Many signs have already shown that a great calamity is coming. Although we are imperial emperors, we may not be able to escape. Several demon emperors, who were hiding in various parts of the demon domain, secretly communicated with each other. Then, they calmed down and retracted their auras before disappearing. Demon Emperor Ling Xiao had died. This scene had a huge impact on everyone's soul and vision. Song Kong and the other demon kings turned pale. Even Demon Emperor Ling Xiao couldn't block the World Devastator Demon Emperor's axe. If this ruthless person wanted to kill them, it would be as easy as crushing a few ants. Greetings, Demon Emperor. I, Song Kong, am willing to submit. Demon King Song Kong was the first to react. He immediately knelt on the ground to show his obedience. Demon Emperor Ling Xiao had already died. Naturally, these experts of Ling Xiao Palace couldn't continue to guard Ling Xiao Palace. Demon King Lu Tsong and the others also knelt down. The Dark Sky Demon God and the other demon kings all had their own sects and forces. They were actually quite reluctant to submit to the World Devastator Demon Emperor. However, the World Devastator Demon Emperor was too powerful. He had just appeared and killed an imperial emperor. They didn't dare to express their dissatisfaction. Seeing that Demon King Song Kong and the others had submitted, the Dark Sky Demon God and the other Demon Kings had an ugly expression. They were hesitant. At this moment, the World Devastator Demon Emperor turned his head slightly. His blood-red eyes looked toward the Dark Sky Demon God and the others. Hiss! The Dark Sky Demon God and the other Demon Kings instantly felt a chill run down their spines. Trembling with fear, the dozen or so Demon Kings fell to their knees without a second thought. They prostrated themselves on the ground, not daring to have the slightest bit of disloyalty. Even the Demon Kings couldn't withstand the World Devastator Demon Emperor's ferocious aura. The demons near Bakin Mountain couldn't withstand it either. No matter which sect they belonged to, no matter how high their cultivation level was, the demons all knelt down to show their submission. Under the World Devastator Demon Emperor's pressure, no one dared to escape. Wu Dao's original body watched this scene with a myriad of thoughts. Not long ago, a peerless demon emperor Bo Sun appeared. And today, another ruthless person from tens of millions of years ago appeared in the world again. In the future, if both of them wanted to occupy the territory of the demon territory, there would definitely be a fight. The World Devastator Demon Emperor's appearance inadvertently helped him get rid of the huge threat that was Demon Emperor Ling Xiao. Now that Demon Emperor Ling Xiao was dead, even if he killed the Imperial Prince Ling Xian, no one would find trouble with him anymore. However, although the threat of Demon Emperor Ling Xiao was removed, an even more terrifying and dangerous existence appeared. And this existence was probably not a good thing for him and the Heaven Baron sect. Wu Dao's original body did not act rashly. If he and Demoness Ji hid in the tomb of the Great Emperor, they might be able to hide and avoid the detection of the World Devastator Demon Emperor. If they broke through the voids rashly and escaped this place, they might alert the World Devastator Demon Emperor instead. Right, you haven't told me which Great Emperor is in this tomb. Wu Dao's original body sent a voice transmission to Demoness Ji and asked secretly. Demoness Ji was hesitant when he asked about that earlier on. Thereafter, a huge change happened above, and the World Devastator Demon Emperor appeared. Both of them were focused on the outside. Therefore, Demoness Ji had never been able to reveal the Great Emperor's name. It's not that I'm not telling you, Demoness Ji said. In the memories of the 9 Netherworld Emperor, this Great Emperor was extremely secretive as well. It was as though the name of this Great Emperor is a taboo that cannot be mentioned. Chapter 2545. Unmentionable. Wu Dao's true body furrowed his brows slightly. Be it the Eternal Life Emperor, or the Infernal Emperor, that he knew of, all of them were recorded in the annals of history, and left behind countless legends. What was so special about this emperor, that even the 9 Netherworld Emperor was wary of him? Demoness Ji hesitated for a long time before sending a voice transmission. The title of this emperor should be Heaven Burial. Boom. Although she sent a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness, the moment those 2 words sounded in the mind of Wu Dao's true body, the gigantic stone steel beside him began to vibrate violently, as though it sensed something. Demoness Ji was shocked and retreated a few steps. Wu Dao's true body turned around and saw a thick layer of dust and gravel falling off the surface of the stone steel. It was filled with words. Wu Dao's true body raised the soul lamp in his hands hurriedly, and let the light of the soul lamp envelop the stone steel as he focused his attention. On the leftmost row of the stone steel, there were 3 words carved, Heaven Burial Sutra. Heaven Burial Sutra, Wu Dao's true body muttered instinctively, as though he had triggered some sort of restriction. The moment Wu Dao's true body said the words, the stone steel that recorded them began to shatter and fall off. Furthermore, the situation was still spreading, and the stone steel was already filled with cracks. It's a forbidden secret manual left behind by the Emperor Heaven Burial. Hurry and memorize it. Demoness Ji was the first to react and said hurriedly. Wu Dao's true body realized the importance of this matter as well, and called out to Qinglian's true body. He released the spirit potency art right away, and established a connection with Qinglian's true body. Far away in Qiankuan Academy, Qinglian's true body's eyes stirred suddenly, as though she had transcended the voids to look at the stone steel in the depths of the fiend domain. Time was tight, and the stone steel could be destroyed at any moment. The two true bodies were telepathically connected. Qinglian's true body memorized the first half, while Wu Dao's true body memorized the second half, imprinting all the sutras on the gigantic stone steel into his mind. Demoness Ji widened her eyes and tried her best to read the sutras on the stone steel. However, she merely read 2 lines before feeling a piercing pain in her eyes. Tears flowed uncontrollably, and she could only give up helplessly. Whoosh! The huge stone tablet didn't last long before it crumbled and turned into a pile of dust. The Heaven Burial Sutra's true body was Heaven Burial Sutra, Thankfully, the two's true body was Heaven Burial Sutra's true bodies the bodies trues Heaven Burial Sutra's true body. Su's true bodies Heaven's Sutra's true bodies. Sutras Susutras, Esit. Sutra. If the Green Lotus true body cultivated another taboo mystic technique, his battle prowess would rise to another level. Sutra. He could almost conclude that this was a demonic art, a taboo secret scripture belonging to the demonic path. Wu Dao's true body had no other requests for Demoness Ji this time around. Who would have thought that he would be ambushed by a ghost immortal in this tomb chamber? Instead, he had used the soul lamp to help the ghost immortal transcend, filling the soul lamp with oil. Moreover, he had even obtained a taboo secret manual by accident. This was a great opportunity. So what if he didn't obtain the World Annihilation Demon Scripture? Although the World Annihilation Demon Scripture was powerful, it still hadn't reached the level of a forbidden secret scripture. As for the heaven-burying scripture, it could be said to be a true taboo secret scripture. More than 1,000 god monarchs were buried with the sky-burying monarch. It wasn't hard to imagine how terrifying the sky-burying monarch was back then. The heaven burial scripture. Just by hearing this name, one could feel a ferocious and arrogant aura. Was the great emperor trying to bury the all heavens? Along with the collapse of the giant stone tablet, the tomb seemed to be unable to hold on any longer. It was on the verge of collapsing, shaking violently, as if it could collapse at any moment. Let's go, let's leave this place first. Wu Dao's true body summoned the hell-suppressing cauldron and broke through the void, bringing Demoness Ji into the dimensional tunnel. Although he was delighted to obtain the heaven burial scripture, he did not forget that there was still a terrifying fiend emperor from tens of millions of years ago guarding outside. The commotion here might alarm the fiend emperor. He had to leave as soon as possible. Wu Dao's true body still had many doubts about the World Annihilation Demon Emperor. However, at that moment, he did not have the time to think about it. Just as the two of them entered the dimensional tunnel, Wu Dao's true body turned back to look in the direction of the World Annihilation Demon Emperor, and could not help but feel his heart skip a beat. At that moment, the World Annihilation Demon Emperor was staring at them as well. However, the World Annihilation Demon Emperor did not attack, and merely looked at him deeply before ignoring him. Before long, Wu Dao's true body brought Demoness Ji back to the Avicii Hell. Wu Dao's true body fell into deep thought when he recalled the final gaze of the World Annihilation Demon Emperor. His final gaze at you was a little strange. Demoness Ji also noticed what happened and said in confusion. There were countless demons present, and only the two of them managed to escape from the World Annihilation Demon Emperor. That action was practically a provocation towards the World Annihilation Demon Emperor. Since he had already discovered them, given the World Annihilation Demon Emperor's personality, he would definitely attack and kill the two of them on the spot. However, the World Annihilation Demon Emperor did not attack, and allowed the two of them to leave. Could he be wary of Emperor Lord Bo Sun behind you? Demoness Ji furrowed her brows and probed. Wu Dao's true body shook his head. The World Annihilation Demon Emperor is an expert from tens of millions of years ago. He doesn't recognize Emperor Lord Bo Sun at all. Furthermore, given his personality and methods, he wouldn't have any qualms even if he knew about Emperor Lord Bo Sun. Demoness Ji nodded. However, that gaze of his was way too strange. as though there was a deeper meaning to it. Wu Dao's true body remained silent, and could not think of an answer for the moment. He was also confused at the mention of Bo Sun. Bo Sun had just appeared, and disappeared mysteriously once more. All these years, there was no news of him at all. It was as though something happened to this Emperor Lord, who cultivated both fiend and Buddhist techniques, and he disappeared completely without leaving any traces. Wu Dao's true body had used his name twice to intimidate others. If Emperor Lord Bo Sun was still alive, he would have come knocking long ago. Let's go. I'll bring you back to Heaven Baron sect. Wu Dao's true body said. There are still some old friends of Heaven Baron sect there. If they see you return, they'll definitely be surprised. All right, Demoness Ji agreed right away. Now that fiend Emperor Ling Xiao was dead, the threat that Ling Xiao Palace posed to them was eliminated as well. She could join Heaven Baron sect openly without attracting any trouble. To be precise, Ling Xiao Palace might be completely removed from this day forth. From now on, the territory of the Fiend region would belong to the World Annihilation Demon Emperor, before Emperor Lord Bo Sun appeared. Wu Dao's true body brought Demoness Ji out of Avicii, and activated the teleportation formation near the Grand Taiwei Mountain to return to Heaven Baron sect. Chapter 2546. Demon Realm, Heaven Baron sect. The core cultivators of the sect were gathered in the Heaven Baron Hall. Apart from Yin Beichen, Ming Zhen, Gu Tongyu, Qiu Siluo, Feng Zi and Sky Wolf, there were also some other cultivators. The Heavenly Rage Thunder Emperor suddenly gathered everyone together. Furthermore, he looked very serious. Everyone knew that something big must have happened. Something happened at Shadowback Mountain. Heaven's Wrath Thunder Emperor hesitated and said, Sect Master just went there. Not many people knew the true identity of Wu Dao's real body. They were all people of Heaven Baron Continent. This was Su Zimo's secret. Usually, if there were outsiders present in Heaven Baron sect, Thunder Emperor and the others would call Wu Dao's real body Patriarch. Something happened to Patriarch? A cultivator couldn't help but ask. Thunder Emperor shook his head and said, So far, I haven't received any definite news, but I heard that the tomb of the Demon Emperor has appeared and attracted many demon kings. Even the Demon Emperor of Lingxiao Palace was alarmed. The Demon Emperor had appeared. Everyone's expression changed as they realized the seriousness of this matter. Everyone knew the means of Wu Dao's real body. With the hell-suppressing cauldron, even if he couldn't defeat an immortal king, he could break through the void at any time and hide in the Avicii hell. But if a Demon Emperor appeared, it would be a completely different concept. A cultivator said in a deep voice, I received news that Patriarch and the Emperor of Lingxiao Palace had a conflict outside the Demon's Denver. The appearance of Demon Emperor Lingxiao is very likely because of this. Another cultivator said, Deputy Patriarch, quickly ask Emperor Bo Sun to come out. If Demon Emperor Lingxiao appears, Heaven Baron sect will be in danger of being destroyed. I don't know where Emperor Bo Sun is. Thunder Emperor shook his head slightly and said, I called you here this time because I want you to go outside the Heaven Realm and find a star to hide. Where are you going? Sky Wolf asked. Thunder Emperor said, I'm going to the central continent of the Demon Realm to take a look. I'm going too. Yen Beichen immediately said. The Heaven Wrath Thunder Emperor said, Your cultivation base is not high enough. Even if you go, it won't help. Your mission is to protect the Heaven Wasteland sect as much as possible. No need. At this moment, a man and a woman stepped into the hall. The man was wearing a purple robe and a silver mask. He was Wu Dao's main body. The woman was dressed in white, and she had a face that could charm all living things. Her eyes were like water, and there were ripples in them. When the woman saw some familiar figures from the Heaven Baron sect, she could not help but smile happily. Everyone was stunned by the woman's smile. Forget the cultivators in the hall. Even Heavenly Wolf was staring with wide eyes. His mouth was wide open, and he didn't even notice the drool flowing out of the corner of his mouth. The first to regain his senses was still the Thunder Emperor. He was an immortal king after all, and he'd encountered a great calamity in the upper dimensions, and been imprisoned for a few tens of thousands of years. So his Dao heart had been tempered a long time ago. and it was tempered to the point it was flawless. Almost as soon as the Thunder Emperor regained his senses, Ming Zhen's expression changed. His eyes regained clarity, and he softly chanted the name of Buddha. Ming Zhen had inherited the inheritance of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and Emperor Ananda. His Buddhist heart was clear and his Dharma was profound, so he quickly extricated himself from the charm. The third to regain his senses was Yen Beichen. When he first saw the woman, he had an illusion that the woman seemed to have turned into Qin Pian Ran and was smiling at him. However, he cultivated the Fiend Buddhist Obsession Sutra and quickly realized that Qin Pian Ran was already dead. It was merely an obsession in his heart. As a woman, Qiu Silua was also charmed by the woman's smile. For a moment, she was a little absent-minded. Suddenly a flute sounded. 315 Chinese Network. It was Gu Tongyu, who was the first to regain his senses. He played the flute. Qiu Siluo's heart skipped a beat, and she instantly came back to her senses. She smiled at Gu Tongyu, and at the same time, her fingertips gently plucked the strings of the instrument. The instrument and flute played together. Feng Zi shuddered and woke up to the sound of the flute. As for Sky Wolf and some others in the main hall, they were still immersed in their own illusions and had long forgotten where they were. Wu Dao's true body did not stop anything from happening. It was good for everyone in the main hall to witness Demoness Ji's methods. Suddenly realizing something, Demoness Ji took out a thin veil from her storage bag to cover her face. She cultivated a forbidden secret manual and had long fused the profoundness of it with her body. Even if she did not release her cultivation technique, every single frown, smile and action of hers was naturally bewitching and alluring. Now that she had covered her face, everyone finally snapped out of their stupor. Sky Wolf shuddered and subconsciously lowered his head to take a look. His saliva had already formed a huge puddle in front of him. How embarrassing! Sky Wolf cursed in his heart. He quietly lay on the ground and covered the water stain. Then he guiltily glanced at the martial Dao body. Little monk Ming Zhen, brother Yen Beichen, you guys are here too. Demoness Ji was all smiles as she waved to the two of them. Amit ba. Ming Zhen looked down at his nose at his mouth, and his mouth at his heart. He chanted the name of Buddha a few times in his heart before he smiled at her and said, Benefactress, how have you been? In Yen Beichen's heart, there was only Qin Pian Ran. Facing Demoness Ji, he nodded his head rather calmly. Another old friend of Tianhuang mainland. It's time for me to raise my brows. Demoness Ji paused for a moment on Qiu Siluo and Gu Tongyu. The two of them looked unfamiliar, and should not be from Tianhuang mainland. However, Demoness Ji quickly guessed their identities and smiled gently. I've long heard of the zither and flute fiends of Tianhuang sect over the years. Now that I've met you today, you do live up to your reputation. Your zither and flute are truly beautiful. My name is Yao Yan. I hope to learn from you in the future. Qiu Siluo and Gu Tongyu nodded towards Demoness Ji in greeting. Finally, her gaze landed on the Thunder Emperor of Heaven's Wrath as she murmured, could this be? Although she was from Lingxiao Palace, she had heard of Heaven's Wrath as well. I'm Feng Cantian, and I was once from Tianhuang mainland as well. The Thunder Emperor stood up with a smile. Wu Dao's true body said, you should have heard of Brother Feng's name in Tianhuang mainland. He's one of the emperors, the Thunder Emperor. Ah, she exclaimed softly with a stern expression and bowed hurriedly. Greetings, Senior Thunder Emperor, I'm Ji Yaoyan. Be it Su Zimo or Demoness Ji. Both of them were filled with respect towards the ancient emperors. In that cruel and bloody era of Tianhuang mainland, it was because of the ancestors of the human race like the ancient emperors, who did not fear death and fought valiantly, that they were able to suppress the primordial 9 races and chase them to a corner of Tianhuang mainland, creating a glorious era that belonged to the human race. There's no need for formalities. The Thunder Emperor waved it off. Although you're a junior, that fiend technique of yours is indeed powerful. Although the Thunder Emperor did not know that Demoness Ji had cultivated a forbidden secret manual, he was discerning and experienced. He could tell that Demoness Ji had immense potential, and was definitely not weaker than Ming Zhen, Yen Beichen and the others. Pondering for a moment, the Thunder Emperor said, The patriarch once established the 7 emotions fiend generals, and I was one of them as well. If you don't mind, there's a suitable position for you. Oh. Demoness G's beautiful eyes swirled as she looked at Wu Dao's true body and asked with a smile. Could it be the 7 emotions lust? Chapter 2547. Translator. Hengyi Translations Editor. Hengyi Translations. There would be a chance. Wu Dao's true body nodded. Regarding this point, he and the Thunder Emperor had the same thought. Of the 7 emotions, Demoness G was probably the only one who could control the Tao of desire. Furthermore, no one present dared to raise any objections based on what she did earlier on. With the addition of Demoness G, there were already 6-7 emotions demon generals. Right now, there was no suitable candidate left for the Tao of fear. Wu Dao's true body was not in a hurry. Forcefully gathering the 7 emotions demon generals was meaningless to him and Heaven Baron sect. Among the 6 demon generals, apart from the Thunder Emperor's wrath, whose cultivation realm was far superior, Demoness G was the highest among the other 5. The other 4 were not many, and were almost all at rank 3 or rank 4 heavenly immortals. Given their potential, it was only a matter of time before they cultivated to rank 9 heavenly immortals, or even the true ones. Suddenly, Gu Tongyu asked with a melancholic expression, Patriarch, I heard that you had a feud with Lingxiao Palace, and even the Lingxiao Demon Emperor was alarmed. Is that true? The other cultivators felt their hearts skip a beat. This matter concerned the survival of Heaven Baron sect, and no one dared to be careless. Wu Dao's true body said, Don't worry, Lingxiao Palace is already destroyed and the Lingxiao Demon Emperor is dead. Psst. Wu Dao's true body's tone was calm. However, his words were earth-shattering to everyone. Lingxiao Palace was the largest faction in the Fiend territory, but it was already destroyed, and even the Lingxiao Demon Emperor was dead? Tell us. Wu Dao's true body looked at Demoness G. He wanted to make use of this opportunity to integrate Demoness G into Heaven Baron sect. Although Demoness G's peerless features were covered, her voice was gentle and pleasant as she recounted everything that happened near Embark Mountain. Everyone was mesmerized, and their minds were alternating between nervousness, shock and fear as Demoness G described it. It was as though they were there personally. That's impossible. Tian Lang was puzzled. Even the lifespan of a great emperor is only about 10 million years. I heard that the longevity great emperor has only lived for about 20 million years. How is it possible for the Heaven Devastation Demon Emperor to live until now? This was also something that Wu Dao's main body didn't understand. Will he reincarnate? Just as Sky Wolf voiced his conjecture, he shook his head and denied it. That's also impossible. If he reincarnated, there should be someone to guide him. Furthermore, it's impossible for him to possess such terrifying battle prowess after reincarnating. Heaven Wrath Thunder Emperor asked. The World Devastation Devil Emperor has a cruel temperament and loves to go on expeditions. If he starts a war, will he attack us? In the mind of Wu Dao's main body, he couldn't help but recall the meaningful look in the World Devastator Devil Emperor's eyes before he left. If the World Devastation Devil Emperor wanted to attack him, he would have had the chance just now. At least not in the short term. Wu Dao's main body muttered. The Heaven Wasteland sect is located at the edge of the demon domain. Even if the World Devastation Demon Emperor wants to conquer the demon domain, he won't be able to reach here in a short time. Everyone was slightly relieved. Wu Dao's main body added, The World Devastation Devil Emperor has appeared, and the demon domain will definitely be in chaos. It may implicate countless sects and forces. From today onwards, the Heaven Wasteland sect no longer needs to expand. Just wait and see. The name of the Heaven Wasteland sect and Araki Takashi had long spread throughout the demon domain, and even the heaven domain. If there were other old friends of the Heaven Wasteland sect, they would definitely know and take the initiative to come over. If the Heaven Wasteland sect continued to expand, it may instead be involved in the chaotic situation of the demon domain. The gains did not make up for the losses. The gaze of Wu Dao's main body fell on Qiuxi Luo, and suddenly asked, You were injured before? Qiuxi Luo hesitated for a moment, but still nodded and said, "It's all right. I'll be able to recover after resting for a while." Yen Beichen said, "Several desperados of the demon domain came for fellow Taoist Gu and fellow Taoist Qiao. Fortunately, Senior Thunder Emperor arrived in time and killed them." "What cultivation level? How many people?" Wu Dao's main body asked. "There aren't many people," Gu Tongyu said. "One true demon and 3 ninth level heavenly immortals." "Is there a grudge between them?" Wu Dao's main body asked again. Xiaoxi Luo shook her head slightly and said, "These 4 people are very unfamiliar. I've never seen them before." Thunder Emperor said, "I left one alive and used a soul-searching technique on him. I saw some information. These people were entrusted by someone. I didn't find out who ordered them." Gu Tongyo's expression was complicated, and he did not speak. Xiaoxi Luo seemed to know something, but she pursed her lips and did not say anything. Wu Dao's main body suddenly said, "If I'm not wrong, it should be someone from the immortal domain. Or it's very likely to be the work of the Zither Immortal." Xiaoxi Luo said, "The 2 of us guessed that it should be her, and that she came for the soul-hooking zither and the desolate flute. She's really persistent. She dares to chase us here." Wu Dao's main body's eyes were cold, and his tone was cold. "Patriarch, forget it," Xiaoxi Luo said. "Anyway, she didn't succeed. After this failure, I guess she won't do anything in the future. Since she's already here, we can't just let it go like this." Tian Lang clamored, unwilling to be at a disadvantage. Wu Dao's main body thought for a while and said, "If I go to the immortal domain, I do have a chance to kill this woman, but Patriarch, you can't put yourself in danger." Xiaoxi Luo hurriedly said, "Zither Immortal Mengyao is the princess of the Great Jin dynasty, and she has been cultivating in the Flying Celestial sect all year round. It's impossible to kill her." Wu Dao's main body shook his head slightly. He was not worried about this. For a woman like Zither Immortal Mengyao, if he killed her directly, it would be too easy for her. Only by dragging her down from the altar in front of everyone, making her lose all her face, and lose all her glory would be the greatest punishment for her. Wu Dao's main body looked at Xiaoxi Luo and suddenly asked, "Based on your attainments in the Zither Dao, how do you compare to Mengyao?" "I've never competed with her. I don't know who's better." Xiaoxi Luo shook her head slightly. Gu Tongyu said, "Her cultivation is far superior to yours, but you're definitely better than her in the Zither Dao. You only know how to coax me." Xiaoxi Luo shook her head and smiled, not taking it seriously. Wu Dao's main body suddenly said in a firm tone, "I also believe that you can beat Mengyao." Xiaoxi Luo was stunned. Gu Tongyu might be coaxing and comforting her, but Patriarch would never do that. Qinglian's main body had heard Xiaoxi Luo's music before. That kind of shock and emotion had even touched Wu Dao's main body, who was far away in the lower world. If she hadn't integrated everything into the Zither Dao, her music would never have reached such a level. Wu Dao's main body had never heard Mengyao's music, but he had seen the ugliness and viciousness of Mengyao's heart. The Zither Immortal's heart was not pure. Even if her skills were better, she might not be able to play any touching music. Xiaoxi Luo smiled bitterly and sighed. "She's the high and mighty Zither Immortal. I'm a nobody. It's hard to even see her, let alone have a chance to compete with her." Demoness Ji said, "She's the Zither Immortal, and you're the Zither Demon. You're already as famous as her." Wu Dao's main body looked coldly in the direction of the 9 heavens immortal realm, and said meaningfully, "There will be a chance." End of chapter. Chapter 2548. 3 days later, Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, Cosmic Academy. In his cave abode, Su Zimo opened his eyes and heaved a long sigh of relief. Now that Demoness Ji was fine, he was relieved. Apart from Demoness Ji, he was most worried about Xiaoning. Unlike Monkey, Night Spirit, Kitsune and Lin Xuanji, Xiaoning ascended with the help of her core, and her combat strength was not strong. Xiaoning might not be able to adapt to the cruel environment of the upper world. Of course, given Su Zimo's current reputation and faction, he could only search for her in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain at most. He could not influence the other immortal domains. He would probably have to wait until he became a perfected immortal, or even an immortal king, before he could make use of his status and reputation to search for Xiaoning in the nine firmament immortal domain. Of course, Xiaoning might not end up in the heaven realm and could be in other realms. Everyone from Tianhuang mainland reunited in the fiend domain. Wu Dao's true body did not enter seclusion immediately. Instead, he spent the entire night with the Thunder Emperor, Yan Beichen, Ming Zhen and Demoness Ji to reminisce about the past. The Thunder Emperor told Yan Beichen and the others about the ancient war, where the emperors led the experts of the human race to fight, kill and gamble against the primordial nine races. Demoness Ji and the others also told the Thunder Emperor about the war with the primordial nine races in this lifetime, and even the blood fiend catastrophe. At the mention of the excitement, everyone drank heartily. 3 days later, Wu Dao's true body left once more. This time round, Wu Dao's true body did not choose to enter seclusion in Tianhuang sect. Instead, he came to the Avicii Hell. Many experts were buried in the Avicii Hell, and countless inheritances were left behind. Now that Wu Dao's true body obtained the Taboo Mystic Manual, the Heaven Burial Sutra, he intended to browse through the cultivation techniques in the Avicii Hell and enter seclusion there at the same time. This time round, he intended to perfect the Wu Dao before coming out of seclusion. The true Wu Dao body was already at greater mastery, and perfecting the Wu Dao was an urgent matter for his true body. In the cave abode of the academy, these days, Su Zimo did not cultivate in seclusion. Instead, he held the Bodhi bead in his hand and comprehended the scriptures in the Sky Burial Scripture. Needless to say, the Heaven Burial Scripture was worthy of being a taboo secret scripture. Every single word in this scripture contained boundless profundities, and every single sentence was sufficient to make him ponder deeply for a long time. Fortunately, he had obtained the Bodhi bead, which had significantly improved his comprehension of cultivation techniques. Otherwise, if he wanted to gain anything from the Heaven Burial Scripture, he would probably have to spend thousands of years. Su Zimo tried to reach out his palm and slowly pressed it forward. Instantly, a pitch-black fiend chi burst forth from his body. His palm vaguely transformed into a gigantic tombstone that was lifeless and lifeless. Not far away, Momo and Lu Ping went out and came back together. When they saw this scene, they exclaimed in shock. At this moment, Su Zimo looked extremely terrifying. His aura was cold and dark, and the tombstone in front of him seemed to want to bury the heavens. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly dispersed the secret technique in the Heaven Burial Scripture. The Heaven Burial Scripture was indeed terrifying. Just now, the power of this secret technique was probably not below the white tiger's corpse bite. However, once this secret technique was released, the fiend chi was vast, and Su Zimo's aura underwent a huge change. Those who were observant would be able to recognize that this was a fiend Dao technique at a glance. If he was in the nine heavens immortal realm, it would not be good to release it casually. Is there anything going on outside? Su Zimo looked at Momo and Lu Ping and asked. It had been 3 days since the birth of the world devastator demon emperor of the demon region. If nothing went wrong, this news should have spread to every corner of the heaven realm. As expected, Lu Ping hurriedly recounted the news about the world devastator demon emperor with a look of exultation and exultation. Even the emperor is dead. That world devastator demon emperor is really terrifying. Lu Ping was speechless. Su Zimo smiled faintly. Although some of the news was slightly off, he did not refute it. For example, almost no one knew that Emperor Ling Xian had died in the hands of Wu Dao's original body. Compared to the death of Demon Emperor Ling Xiao, Emperor Ling Xian had been ignored. Even if someone noticed, they would subconsciously think that the emperor had died in the hands of the world devastator Demon Emperor. And Demon King Song Kong, and the others who knew the truth would not take the initiative to clarify. At that time, Wu Dao's original body had forcefully killed Emperor Ling Xian under the protection of a group of demon kings. If this matter was revealed, it would not look good on them. Because of the awakening of the world devastator demon emperor, the rest, including Demon King Song Kong and Wu Dao's original body, were almost ignored. No one paid attention to their actions. This matter caused a huge uproar in the heaven realm. The immortal emperors of the 9 immortal domains were greatly shocked. Not only the heaven realm, but the immortal emperors of the other realms also became nervous when they heard about this. The world devastator demon emperor was not a kind person. This person had fought everywhere and stepped on mountains of corpses. His hands were stained with the blood of countless people. In this life, he had just awakened and had already killed a demon emperor. Who knew how much blood he would cause in the future? Actually, there is no need to be afraid. Lu Ping said. I heard that there is a heavenly king in the Pure Lands who successfully stepped into the emperor realm, greatly increasing the strength of the Pure Lands. He is called the Lord of 6 Brahma Heaven. It is said that this was originally the Lord of 6 Brahma. When Bo Sun appeared, he killed a few heavenly kings and disappeared. Only this Lord of 6 Brahma survived by luck. The Lord of 6 Brahma was a blessing in disguise. After this disaster, he gained enlightenment and became an emperor a few days ago. He is now called the Lord of 6 Brahma Heaven. How rare! Su Zimo nodded. To be able to survive the hands of Bo Sun, he must be extraordinary. Lu Ping said. I also heard that this Lord of 6 Brahma Heaven had just stepped into the emperor realm and started to preach. He attracted many monks of the Pure Lands to follow him, and his influence is growing. The 9 Clouds Immortal Region and the Pure Lands will definitely join hands again, said Lu Ping. Last time, the imperial emperors of the Pure Lands and the 9 Clouds Immortal Region joined hands to kill Bo Sun. This time, Bo Sun and the World Destroyer have already appeared. The situation is serious. The imperial emperors of the Pure Lands and the 9 Clouds Immortal Region won't just wait for death. Su Zimo nodded. The meeting of the 9 Clouds was the best opportunity for the 9 Clouds Immortal Region and the Pure Lands to join hands. Originally, it was called the meeting of the 9 Clouds Immortal Region. However, later on, the 9 Clouds Immortal Region and the Pure Lands had joined hands to kill Bo Sun. The Buddhists and the Devakulpa Heaven had joined hands. Countless cultivators had gathered together to participate in the meeting of the 9 Clouds Immortal Region and the Arhat list. Even though many years had passed and the Buddhists and the Celestial Immortal Region and the Arhat list hadn't gathered again, the meeting of the 9 Clouds was still called the meeting of the 9 Clouds. Bo Sun and the World Destroyer had already appeared. If nothing unexpected happened, the Buddhists and the Celestial Immortal Region would probably join hands to participate in the meeting of the 9 Clouds. At that time, not only would there be geniuses from the 9 Clouds Immortal Region, but there would also be geniuses from the Pure Lands. The imperial emperors of the Celestial Immortal Region and the Buddhists and the Celestial Immortal Region would also take the opportunity to gather and discuss this matter. These things had nothing to do with Su Zimo for the time being. Wu Dao's real body was cultivating in the hell of Avicii, studying Wu Dao's cultivation techniques. Qinglian's real body was also cultivating in seclusion. She was preparing to break through to the 8th level before the meeting of the Divine Firmament Immortal Region. Chapter 2549. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years had passed. It was getting closer and closer to the Divine Firmament Immortal Gathering. Over the years, as the prodigies of the various sects and factions came out of seclusion, the cultivators on the Heaven Roll were also predicted to change. Even the predicted top 10 of the Heaven Leaderboard had a few people squeezed out and replaced. As the Divine Firmament Immortal Gathering approached, the competition on the Heaven Roll was predicted to be even more intense. However, the top 5 on the Heaven Roll were predicted to be unshakable. Ever since the battle at Shura, there had been no changes. The first on the Heaven Roll was Yun Ting from the Purple Xian Celestial Kingdom. Second was Qin Gu from the Mountain Sea Celestial Sect. Third was Su Zimo from the Heaven and Earth Academy. Fourth was Zhong Feiyu from the Flying Celestial Sect. Fifth was Lai Xian from the Flaming Sun Celestial Kingdom. These 5 people firmly occupied the top 5 on the Heaven Roll. No matter how fierce the battles behind them were, the 5 of them were as stable as mountains. Moreover, after the battle at Shura, the 5 of them had chosen to cultivate in seclusion and had not appeared. Su Zimo from the Heaven and Earth Academy is indeed powerful. The battle 1,000 years ago brought great pressure to Yun Ting and the others. All these years, they have all gone into seclusion to improve. Looks like the first on the heaven roll this time should be one of Yun Ting, Qinggu, and Su Zimo. Zhong Feiyu is not weak either. After all, he was sealed by the Blood Fiend seal at Shura, so his strength was reduced. As the date of the Divine Firmament Immortal Gathering approached, many cultivators came out of seclusion and gathered in groups to discuss the heaven roll. Overall, the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm had 7 heaven-grade factions, 3 celestial kingdoms, and 4 celestial sects. Although the Divine Firmament Palace was not among the 7 factions, its status was extraordinary. It was also the true core of the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm. After all, the 7 heaven-grade factions did not have a Tharch behind them. However, the Divine Firmament Palace had a celestial emperor. Generally speaking, except for some special circumstances, the Divine Firmament Palace would not directly interfere with the matters of the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm. Instead, it was left to the 7 heaven-grade factions to manage. Even if one of the 7 heaven-grade factions were destroyed, the Divine Firmament Immortal Emperor might not appear. The rise and fall of immortal kingdoms and the rise and fall of sects were normal for immortal emperors who had long lifespans. As long as it did not threaten the Divine Firmament Palace or affect his position, there was no need for him to do anything. The Divine Firmament Immortal Gathering, which was held every 100,000 years, was the biggest event in the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm. The event was hosted by the Divine Firmament Palace. At the same time, the Divine Firmament Palace wanted to show all the cultivators and sects in the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm that the Divine Firmament Palace had an unshakable position. There was only 1 day left until the Divine Firmament Immortal Gathering. Logically speaking, all the major sects and factions had to arrive at the Divine Firmament Palace 1 day in advance. Many cultivators and disciples of Cosmos Academy had already gathered outside the Academy's teleportation hall. Normally, not everyone would have the chance to participate in the Divine Firmament Immortal meeting. Generally speaking, only true immortals and celestial immortals from other sects and factions were qualified to enter Divine Firmament Palace's territory. The 7 heaven-rank forces, on the other hand, received special treatment. The Divine Firmament Palace allowed the 7 heaven-grade forces to bring some Earth immortals to participate in the competition to broaden their horizons. This time, there were 2 leaders from Cosmos Academy. They were both disciples of the Academy's patriarch, the Moonlight Sword Immortal and Painting Fairy Mo Qing. Normally, Painting Fairy Mo Qing would not be willing to participate in such an event. But this time, Painting Fairy Mo Qing had taken the initiative to ask for permission. 1,000 years ago, Fairy Mo Qing had helped Su Zimo to save people in Green Cloud Mountain, and even killed a true immortal from the state of Jin. Therefore, over the years, rumors about Fairy Mo Qing and Su Zimo had spread far and wide in the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm. And this time, Fairy Mo Qing had taken the initiative to ask for permission, which made people's imaginations run wild. More than 100,000 disciples gathered in front of the Academy's teleportation hall. Apart from most of the celestial immortals, there were also many outstanding outer sect disciples. Unless there were some special circumstances, no one wanted to miss this once in 100,000 years event. Moreover, no one would have the chance to enter the Divine Firmament Palace under normal circumstances. Now was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They could not miss it. At that moment, almost all the disciples who were going to participate in the Divine Firmament Immortal meeting had gathered. But no one moved, because there was still one person who had not arrived. More than 100,000 cultivators were waiting for one person, but most of the disciples looked normal and did not complain, because this person had brought too much glory to the Academy, first on the Earth roll, third on the Heaven roll, and the earth-shattering battle at the Shura battlefield. The Moonlight Sword Immortal stood with her hands behind her back. Her eyes were closed, and her face was expressionless. In order to please the Moonlight Sword Immortal, a true immortal suddenly muttered, "How arrogant. He actually made so many of us wait for him." Don't forget that Su Zimo is not the first on the heaven roll, and he is not a true disciple of the academy. Yang Ruoxia pondered and said, he must be held back by something important. His Tao child is guarding the door and not letting anyone in. It is very likely that he is at a critical moment in his cultivation and cannot be disturbed. Mo Qing suddenly said, as long as we arrive at the Divine Firmament Palace one day in advance, there are still a few hours. We can make it. But the true immortal wanted to say something. The Moonlight Sword Immortal suddenly opened her eyes and interrupted him. There's no harm in waiting. Junior brother Su is competing for the heaven roll this time, to contribute to the academy. We have to be patient. Chen Xian was stunned. Isn't the Moonlight Sword Immortal at odds with Su Zimo? Why is she suddenly speaking up for Su Zimo today? Yes. Although he was confused, Chen Xian hurriedly nodded in agreement. Yang Ruoxia frowned slightly and took a deep look at the Moonlight Sword Immortal. However, the latter's expression was normal and nothing could be seen. Not long after, a green-robed cultivator sped over from the direction of the inner sect and arrived in the blink of an eye. It was Su Zimo, level 8 Heaven Immortal. Senior brother Su has broken through again. Some inner sect disciples were curious and released their divine senses to check Su Zimo's body. They were shocked and exclaimed. In an instant, countless divine senses swept across Su Zimo's body. Everyone was shocked. Su Zimo had just broken through to level 7 Heaven Immortal in the Shura battlefield. In less than 1,000 years, he had advanced another level and stepped into level 8 Heaven Immortal. The hundreds of thousands of Heaven Immortals present knew that in the heavenly origin realm, it was harder to break through. Many of them had been stuck at level 7 Heaven Immortal for tens of thousands of years, and might not even touch the threshold of level 8 Heaven Immortal, let alone break through. Su Zimo had entered the inner sect of the academy for less than 5,000 years, and had already cultivated to level 8 Heaven Immortal. Senior brother Su has broken through again. His ranking on the Heaven leaderboard should surpass Qin Gu and be ranked second. The Heaven leaderboard is predicted to be over. The rankings will not be updated. Senior brother Su has become a level 8 Heaven Immortal. His chances of taking first place on the Heaven leaderboard have increased. Many of the academy disciples were excited and discussed. Yang Ruoxia sent a voice transmission to Su Zimo and secretly reminded him, Brother Su, be careful of Moonlight. I feel that something is wrong with her. Su Zimo nodded without batting an eyelid. Let's go. The Moonlight Sword Immortal glanced at Su Zimo, turned around, and walked towards the teleportation hall. Chapter 2550. The Divine Firmament Palace was built against the mountain, and there were many palaces. It was magnificent and majestic. The people from the Qiankuan Academy were teleported outside the Divine Firmament Palace. Many disciples looked up at the Divine Firmament Palace not far away and felt shocked. Before the Divine Firmament Immortal meeting began, a large number of cultivators had already gathered at the foot of the Divine Firmament Palace. They came from all over the Divine Firmament Immortal realm. There were even some cultivators from other immortal realms. It was extremely lively. Look, the cultivators from the Qiankuan Academy are here. The arrival of more than 100,000 disciples from the Qiankuan Academy attracted the attention of countless cultivators. Which one is Su Zimo, who is predicted to be third on the heaven list? The one in the middle of the second row. He's wearing a green shirt and has delicate features. He looks a little weak, like a scholar. I didn't expect him to be so powerful. He can fight 6 people who are predicted to be in the top 10 of the heaven list. Almost all the cultivators in the Divine Firmament Immortal realm had heard of Su Zimo, but not many had seen him before. The woman in the lead of the Qiankuan Academy is so beautiful. Someone muttered to himself, his eyes staring straight ahead. It's the Painting Fairy, one of the 4 fairies, Painting Fairy Mo Qing. Oh my god, the Painting Fairy is here too. Some of the cultivators who had been talking about Su Zimo immediately turned their attention when they heard the name of the Painting Fairy. In an instant, Painting Fairy Mo Qing became the center of attention in the Divine Firmament Palace, attracting countless gazes. Compared to Su Zimo, who was predicted to be third on the heaven list, Painting Fairy Mo Qing was much more famous. Moreover, Painting Fairy Mo Qing was the most low-key and mysterious of the four fairies. She had never participated in such a gathering before. Now that Painting Fairy Mo Qing had appeared, countless cultivators' eyes lit up and were pleasantly surprised. Why did Fairy Mo Qing suddenly come to the Divine Firmament Immortal meeting? You still don't know, right? I heard that Fairy Mo Qing and Su Zimo are very close. It must be a rumor. Previously, they said that something happened between Fairy Mo Qing and Yang Ruoxu, but it's all fake. The rumors about Fairy Mo Qing and Su Zimo are not groundless. In the past few years, Fairy Mo Qing has appeared in public several times because of Su Zimo. Many busybodies were beaming with joy and whispering to each other. Such discussions naturally couldn't be hidden from the Moonlight Sword Immortal, Painting Immortal Mo Qing, and the others. The Moonlight Sword Immortal glanced at the Painting Fairy Mo Qing from the corner of her eye. The latter's expression was normal, as if she didn't care about the rumors. A hint of gloom flashed across the depths of the Moonlight Sword Immortal's eyes, and she became even more determined. Fellow Taoists from the Cosmos Academy, sorry for the wait. At that moment, a woman came running from not far away. She had the badge of the Divine Firmament Palace hanging on her waist. She arrived in the blink of an eye and said, "I am Divine Crane. The Divine Firmament Palace has already prepared a place to stay. Please come with me." Su Zimo was slightly taken aback when he saw the Divine Crane Fairy. Back then, this woman seemed to be one of the 6 people in the sky above the battlefield in Shura. "So it's Fairy Shin Crane. How have you been?" The Moonlight Sword Immortal cupped her fists at Fairy Divine Crane and greeted her. The Divine Crane Fairy nodded and smiled at the Moonlight Sword Immortal. The two of them had only met once and didn't have much of a relationship. Of course, she didn't take the greeting seriously. Her attention was focused on the other person from the Cosmos Academy. The Moonlight Sword Immortal didn't notice and asked again, "I heard that the Divine Crane Fairy will be participating in the Heaven List evaluation this time?" After all, the Divine Crane Fairy was a perfected immortal of the Divine Firmament Palace. If she could get to know her, it wouldn't be a bad thing. The Divine Crane Fairy didn't seem to hear anything. She walked in front and turned back to look at Su Zimo behind the Moonlight Sword Immortal. She smiled and said, "You should have seen me before, right?" Su Zimo hesitated for a moment, but didn't hide it. He nodded and said, "On the battlefield in Shura, I saw you from afar, but I couldn't see you clearly. You're already very powerful." The Divine Crane Fairy smiled and said, "Back when you hadn't come out from the bottom of the lake, I thought very highly of you. Later, as expected, you're already an 8th stage heavenly immortal? You're cultivating so fast." The two of them chatted and laughed, ignoring the Moonlight Sword Immortal. With so many people present, the Moonlight Sword Immortal was ignored. She couldn't help but feel annoyed, and her face darkened. "You won't live for long anyway," the Moonlight Sword Immortal sneered in her heart. Not long after, the disciples of the Cosmos Academy entered the Divine Palace and disappeared from everyone's sight. The 4 fairies, the Zither Fairy and the Painting Fairy are both here. I wonder if I'll have the chance to see the Book Fairy and the Chess Fairy this time. The Book Fairy might come. After all, Yun Ting is the younger brother of the Book Fairy Yunju. If the 4 fairies can really come together, it'll be a grand occasion that the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm has never seen before. The 4 fairies had long been famous in the heaven world, but in reality, the 4 of them had never appeared in the same place. The disciples of the Cosmos Academy arrived at the accommodations arranged by the Divine Firmament Palace. Many cultivators were excited and left to tour around. The Painting Fairy, Mo Qing, preferred silence and didn't walk around. Yang Ruoxia stayed by Su Zimo's side, afraid that the Moonlight Sword Immortal would harm Su Zimo. In the afternoon, someone knocked on the door. Yang Ruoxia scanned with her divine perception and felt relieved. There were only 2 people outside, and both of them were heaven immortals. One of them was Princess Qi Hong's brother Xie Qingcheng. Su Zimo stood up and took the initiative to welcome the 2 of them in. "Brother Su." Xie Qingcheng smiled when he saw Su Zimo. In just 1,000 years, Xie Qingqing's aura had undergone a drastic change. He became more stable and dignified, and a hint of majesty flashed across his eyes from time to time. Behind Xie Qingqing was Lai Xian, who was predicted to be fifth on the heaven leaderboard. Fellow Taoist Su, how have you been? Lai Xian cupped his fists at Su Zimo and said with a complicated expression. Even though Su Zimo had suppressed him twice in the Azura battlefield, Su Zimo was still alive. But in his heart, he really couldn't bring himself to hate Su Zimo. In the group of people predicted to be in the top 10 of the heaven leaderboard, other than Zhong Feiyu who had escaped unscathed, he was the only one who was unscathed. Moreover, he had profited from the disaster. Under Su Zimo's immense pressure, he had finally comprehended the ultimate meaning of the Flaming Sun Sutra from that flame secret technique, and his battle strength had greatly increased. How have you been all these years as the princess of Lingxia? Su Zimo asked. Xie Qingqing looked at Lai Xian and said, with Brother Lai's help, he has resolved many problems for me and helped me gain a foothold. Actually, when he saw Xie Qingqing and Lai Xian together, Su Zimo knew that Lai Xian was already under Xie Qingqing's command. This was more or less what he had expected. As the sky gradually darkened, Xie Qingqing and Lai Xian bid farewell and left. The night passed, and Yang Ruoxia didn't rest at all. He was nervous and prepared to deal with any sudden changes. Tomorrow was the Divine Firmament Immortal meeting, and tonight would be the Moonlight Sword Immortal's last chance. But until dawn, there was no movement nearby. The Moonlight Sword Immortal was cultivating in a room not far away. She didn't even come out. Was it just my imagination? Yang Ruoxia was also a little suspicious. Not long after, everyone from Qingkuan Academy gathered outside, preparing to head to the Divine Firmament Palace. Today, the Divine Firmament Immortal meeting would officially begin. Chapter 2551. The Divine Firmament main hall was extremely spacious and could easily accommodate tens of millions of people. By the time Qingkuan Academy arrived with over 100,000 disciples, there were already many people gathered in the Divine Firmament Hall. It was so densely packed that one couldn't see the end of it. The cultivators of the Divine Firmament Palace were at the highest point of the hall. On both sides were the areas of the 7 heaven-level forces. Now the Flaming Sun Celestial Kingdom, the Mountain and Sea Celestial Sect, and the Imperial Wind Monastery had all arrived. There were a few familiar faces in the crowd. When the people of the Qingkuan Academy arrived, the leaders of the 3 forces also stood up and cupped their hands slightly. Moonlight, we haven't seen each other for many years. A white-robed man from the Imperial Wind Monastery stood up. He had a handsome face, sharp eyebrows, and bright eyes. He had a long sword at his waist and greeted the Moonlight Sword Immortal. Brother Spring Breeze, you're still as elegant as ever. The Moonlight Sword Immortal chuckled and nodded. Yang Ruoxia said telepathically, this is the Spring Breeze Sword of the Imperial Wind Monastery, one of the 3 Sword Immortals. This person has a good relationship with Senior Moonlight. You also crippled Celestial Immortal Luo Yang on the battlefield in Shura. You have to be wary of him. Su Zimo looked at the Spring Breeze Sword Immortal. At the same time, the Spring Breeze Sword Immortal's gaze also fell on Su Zimo. His gaze was a little strange. There was some hostility, but also a trace of pity. Besides the Spring Breeze Sword Immortal, there was another person in the Imperial Wind Monastery that Su Zimo had seen before. Back on the Dragon Abyss planet, there were 3 perfected immortals. Besides the Moonlight Sword Immortal and Zither Immortal Mingyao, the other one was this person. He seemed to be called Perfected Immortal Wufeng. He was familiar with the leader of the Flaming Sun Celestial Kingdom. It was Xie Ling, who presided over the 10,000-year meeting and the battle for the seal. The leader of the Mountain and Sea Celestial Sect was a perfected immortal named Mu Feng. He was tall and burly. He stared at Su Zimo for a while with an unfriendly expression. In the battlefield in Shura, Yu Hai was killed by Su Zimo. It was not difficult to understand why this person was hostile to him. Su Zimo ignored Mu Feng. This was the Divine Firmament Palace. Even if Mu Feng was hostile to him, he wouldn't have the chance to make a move. What really caught Su Zimo's attention was the black-clothed man beside Mu Feng. This black-robed man was only a ninth-stage celestial immortal, but he was able to sit side by side with Mu Feng. This person's eyes were closed, and his back was ramrod straight. His hands were casually placed on his knees with his palms facing the sky. His face was expressionless and cold. Feeling Su Zimo's gaze, the black-clothed man suddenly opened his eyes and looked toward Su Zimo. Very sharp senses. Su Zimo nodded secretly. If nothing unexpected happened, this person should be the second on the heaven list, the reincarnated true immortal of the Mountain and Sea Immortal Sect, Qin Gu. Everyone from Qingquan Academy took their seats. At this moment, the forces of the Great Jin Immortal Empire arrived at the Great Hall. The one leading them was the Shadowless Sword who had clashed with Su Zimo, and the others before Shadowless. Wow, the Divine Firmament Immortal gathering this time is so lively. All 3 Sword Immortals are here. I just don't know how many of the 4 fairies will come. I heard that the Zither Immortal and the Book Immortal are also here, but I didn't see the Chess Immortal. The Chess Immortal belonged to the Mountain and Sea Immortal Sect. With the Chess Immortal's status, if she came to the Divine Firmament Immortal gathering, Mu Feng would have to bow his head and listen to her orders. Now that Mu Feng was leading the Mountain and Sea Immortal Sect's team, everyone guessed that they might not have the chance to see the Chess Immortal this time. The Moonlight Sword Immortal stood up and cupped her fists in Shadowless direction. Shadowless and the Moonlight Sword Immortal's eyes met in midair and nodded. Yang Ruoxia suddenly frowned. He felt that something was amiss. There were more than a dozen true immortals from the Great Jin Immortal Empire who came to participate in the Divine Firmament Immortal Gathering. Normally, the main characters of the Divine Firmament Immortal Gathering were the Heaven Immortals of the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm. The true immortals of the various sects and factions usually did not come to join in the fun. They were led by 2 or 3 true immortals. Not long after the Divine Firmament Immortal Gathering was the Nine Clouds Convention. At that time, it would truly be a grand gathering of the Immortal Tao, where countless true immortals would gather. This time, only Xia Ling led the Flaming Sun Immortal Kingdom. The Mountain Sea Immortal Sect only sent 1 true immortal, Mu Feng. 2 from the Imperial Wind Monastery came, Spring Breeze Sword Immortal and True Immortal Wu Feng. The Heaven and Earth Academy sent 4, which was already considered a lot. Now more than 10 true immortals from the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom were here. Why did the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom send so many true immortals? Don't you know? The first executioner, Song Su, was originally predicted to be 5th on the heaven roll, but Su Zimo killed him in 1 move. It's predicted that the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom will soon have no one on the heaven roll. There are only 3 left, and they are ranked below the 50th place. So they know about this. So what? I guess they want to send a few more true immortals to support the scene. Some cultivators in the crowd noticed the commotion and were secretly discussing it. Before long, the people from the Zishuan Immortal Kingdom arrived, instantly attracting the attention of countless cultivators. The entire Divine Firmament main hall was in an uproar. It was because the 2 people from the Zishuan Immortal Kingdom were too famous in the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm. Look, the Zishuan Immortal Kingdom is led by Book Immortal Yunju. That lady in plain clothes is Fairy Yunju. She's indeed a Book Immortal. She's so elegant in plain clothes. The Painting Immortal and Book Immortal are both here. They're really beautiful and have their own merits. If I can win the heart of one of them, I'm willing to sacrifice 100,000 years of my lifespan. Dream on. Behind Book Immortal Yunju was a young man with a long sword on his back. His eyes were sharp as he looked around. He was like an unsheathed sword, showing off his sharpness. He was predicted to be the first on the heaven roll, Yun Ting. Yun Ting seemed to be looking for someone in the crowd. When he saw Qin Gu, his eyes did not stop. They swept past him, and then landed in the direction of the Heaven and Earth Academy, locking onto Su Zimo. The moment the 2 of them looked at each other, their eyes lit up. Neither of them retreated or dodged. Their battle intent was soaring. Su Zimo wanted to obtain the Mortal Slayer sword art. Not only did Yun Ting want to obtain the Heavenly Slayer and Earthly Slayer, but he also wanted to defeat Su Zimo and regain the dignity he lost in the tomb. When Book Immortal Yunju arrived, Moonlight Sword Immortal and the others stood up and greeted her. Yinju smiled and returned their greetings. Yinju and Mo Qing looked at each other and smiled. The smiles of the painting immortal and book immortal caused another commotion in the crowd. Thereafter, Yunju looked at Su Zimo, who was behind Mo Qing. Zimo, be careful. For some reason, the Flying Immortal Sect and Dajin Immortal Kingdom have sent many perfected immortals here. They seem to be up to something. Yunju's pleasant voice sounded in Su Zimo's consciousness. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. By the looks of it, Dajin Immortal Kingdom and Flying Immortal Sect might really be up to something. However, he still could not figure out what Zither Immortal Mingyao and the others could do at the Divine Firmament Immortal meeting. After all, he was a disciple of the Heaven and Earth Academy. Even if the two of them were like fire and water, Zither Immortal Mingyao and the Divine Firmament Palace would not let such a thing happen. Unless Mingyao and the others had a good reason. Just as Su Zimo was deep in thought, the Flying Immortal Sect arrived. Chapter 2552. The sound of a zither could be heard, spreading to every corner of the Divine Firmament Palace. Before Zither Immortal Meng Yao arrived, she had already attracted the attention of countless cultivators. Meng Yao led a group of Flying Celestial Sect cultivators to the Divine Firmament Palace. Just as Yunju had said, there were as many as 18 perfected immortals from the Flying Celestial Sect. Zhong Feiyu was a reincarnated perfected immortal after all, so he stood in the group of perfected immortals. He looked at Su Zimo and smiled provocatively, making a throat-slitting gesture. Su Zimo's expression was calm and unmoved. Zhong Feiyu was like a clown to him, not a threat at all. The only ones who could threaten him were the Moonlight Sword Immortal, Zither Immortal Meng Yao, and the others. The 3 Sword Immortals and the 3 Fairies have gathered. Such a grand occasion is unprecedented. It's a pity that the Chess Immortal is missing. The Chess Immortal is probably preparing for the 9 Heavens Convention. I heard that the Chess Immortal has a chance to enter the top 3 of the Perfected Immortal leaderboard. He even has a chance to fight for the position of a Perfected Immortal. The Divine Firmament Immortal Convention had not officially begun, but many cultivators were already excited. They felt that this trip was worth it. Now the 3 great immortal kingdoms and the 4 great immortal sects had all gathered. They were waiting for the people from the Divine Firmament Palace to come and host the Divine Firmament Immortal Convention. The crowd did not wait long before a group of cultivators slowly walked out from the depths of the Divine Firmament Palace. The leader was a middle-aged man in a green robe. He had a calm expression and a powerful aura. The middle-aged man seemed to have merged with the void around him. A Grotto Heaven Immortal King had arrived. Behind the middle-aged man were 6 perfected immortals. They were the 6 who had watched the battle in Shura. Divine Crane Fairy was among them. There were also many young and beautiful maidservants from the Divine Firmament Palace following behind. These maidservants looked young, but each of them was a heaven immortal. From this, one could feel the terrifying power of the Divine Firmament Palace. Even a heaven immortal was only a maidservant here. The middle-aged man descended. In front of the immortal king, no one dared to be rude. They all stood up. The middle-aged man nodded slightly and said, I am Qingyang, the eldest disciple of the Divine Firmament Immortal Emperor. I am the host of this convention. Immortal King Azure Sun, at the peak of the Grotto Heaven realm, was a peak immortal king. Greetings, Immortal King Green Sun. Everyone cupped their hands and bowed. Have a seat. Immortal King Qingyang looked indifferent. He waved his hand casually and sat on a high chair, saying, I think everyone already knows the rules of the Heaven List. The rules of the Heaven List ranking battle were the same as the Earth List ranking battle. It was all based on the rankings, and the loser would be eliminated. For example, Yun Ting, who was at the top of the Heaven List, would be up against a cultivator who was at the top 100 of the Heaven List. As for Su Zimo, he was ranked 3rd on the predicted Heaven leaderboard, so his opponent should be the cultivator ranked 98th on the predicted Heaven leaderboard. Everyone should know that after the Heaven ranking battle, the higher your ranking, the more benefits you will receive. Immortal King Qingyang said, Of course, the Divine Firmament Palace will give every cultivator on the Heaven ranking an opportunity. Many cultivators who predicted the heaven roll were overjoyed. Yin Ting suddenly stood up and cupped his fists. Green Sun Immortal King. Forgive me for being blunt, but the rules of the Heaven Board ranking battle are too troublesome and unreasonable. Many cultivators were secretly speechless. Perhaps only Yin Ting had the guts to speak to Immortal King Qingyang like that. Immortal King Qingyang was not angry. He smiled and asked, "The rules of the ranking battle have been passed down for many years. Why are they unreasonable?" Yin Ting said, "Because most of the people on the heaven list have no chance of competing for the top spot." "Oh, do you have a better idea?" Immortal King Qingyang raised his eyebrows slightly. Yin Ting smiled and raised his head slightly. He said proudly, "In my opinion, the top spot on the heaven list will only be born between me and Su Zimo. The rest are not worthy." This sentence was extremely arrogant. It was equivalent to looking down on the other people on the heaven list. Even the second place Qin Gu, the fourth place Zhong Feiyu, and the fifth place Lai Xian were not mentioned by Yin Ting. Zhong Feiyu snorted coldly. Although Qin Gu was unhappy, he was expressionless and calm. He did not express his opinion. "So what do you want to do?" Immortal King Qingyang smiled and asked again. "Simple." Yin Ting pointed at Su Zimo from Qingquan Academy and said, "The two of us will fight in the first round. Whoever wins will be the top of the heaven list. The others are not qualified to challenge us. Go fight for the third and fourth place." Su Zimo smiled slightly. This was indeed Yin Ting's style. Simple, direct, arrogant, and merciless. Immortal King Qingyang shook his head and said, "This is unfair to the others. Even if I agree, there will be others who disagree. Who cares about them?" Yin Ting waved his hand and turned to look at Su Zimo. His battle intent surged as he said, "Su Zimo, as long as you agree, it's enough." Yin Ting's suggestion was due to the pride in his heart. Even after the ranking battle, it was most likely that the two of them would be left in the end. However, at this time, the two of them were not in their peak condition. The battle that they had agreed on was not completely fair. Since they wanted to compete, Yin Ting had to defeat Su Zimo fair and square. There was another point. In Yin Ting's heart, the top of the heaven list was not the most important thing. The most important thing was to defeat Su Zimo and obtain the heavenly kill and earthly kill sword techniques. Su Zimo quickly understood Yin Ting's intention and did not refuse. He stood up and said in a low voice, "Okay, as you wish." Although this was against the rules, the cultivators below the stage did not stand up to object. This was because most of the cultivators on the heaven list knew that Yin Ting was right. They did not have the chance to fight for the top of the heaven list. Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu, who had the chance to fight for the top of the heaven list, looked at each other and said nothing. For the two of them, there were only benefits and no disadvantages. When two tigers fought, one of them would be injured. They would let Yin Ting and Su Zimo fight to the point where both sides were severely injured. By then, no matter who won, they would be able to stand out and defeat Yin Ting and Su Zimo with ease and reap the benefits. Yinju looked at Yin Ting and Su Zimo with a complicated expression. She wanted to say something but hesitated. Even she wasn't sure who would emerge victorious in this battle. She wanted to persuade Su Zimo or Yin Ting not to fight to the death. However, once both of them fought to the extreme, it would be difficult to stop. She did not want to see anything happen to either of them. However, she knew that the battle between the two of them was unavoidable and had to happen. It was like a battle of fate. The two of them had to decide who was better, and the three sword techniques could be combined into one. Wait! At this moment, Zither Immortal Mengyao suddenly spoke and stood up slowly. Yinju frowned slightly. "Here it comes," Su Zimo said in his heart. Chapter 2553. Meng Yao came to the center of the hall and bowed to Immortal King Qingyang. Then, she looked around and said loudly, "The heaven roll is the heaven roll of the human race. If you want to compete for the heaven roll, you can't be from an alien race." Of course. The Moonlight Sword Immortal nodded and said, Even cultivators from other celestial realms are not qualified to compete for the heaven role of the divine firmament celestial realm. Hearing this, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He vaguely guessed something. Suddenly, he felt a strong sense of hostility from the crowd of the Imperial Wind Monastery. Su Zimo looked around and met a pair of resentful eyes. This person had white hair and looked withered. It was celestial immortal Luo Yang, who had been crippled by him in the Shura battlefield. Seeing this person, Su Zimo was even more certain of his guess. As the eldest disciple of the Ling Xiao Immortal Emperor, Immortal King Qingyang naturally knew about the world. He had also heard about the feud between Zither Fairy Meng Yao and the Great Jin Celestial Kingdom and Su Zimo. With his eyesight, he could easily see that Zither Fairy Meng Yao had suddenly stood up for him. However, he was also a little curious. He wanted to see how Meng Yao would deal with the disciple of the Qianquan Academy in the Divine Firmament Palace in front of everyone. After all, the Qianquan Academy was not to be trifled with. Immortal King Qingyang did not intend to interfere and was prepared to watch the show. Fairy Meng Yao, what do you mean by that? Zhu Wuying pretended not to know and asked. Could it be that cultivators from other celestial realms have infiltrated the heaven role? Haha. If it's cultivators from other celestial realms, it'll be good to chase them away. Perfected Immortal Wufeng of the Imperial Wind Monastery chuckled and said, I'm just afraid that someone from the alien race has infiltrated the Divine Firmament Celestial Realm and is up to no good. Someone from the alien race was predicted to be on the heaven roll. Most of the cultivators still did not know what was going on, nor did they know who the alien race that Meng Yao and the others were talking about was. Even Yun Ting frowned, not understanding what was going on. Yun Zhu observed the situation with a grave expression. Up until now, the Flying Celestial Sect, the Great Jin Celestial Kingdom, and the Imperial Wind Monastery had already stepped forward. From the looks of it, Meng Yao and the others should have discussed the Divine Firmament Celestial Immortals Party. Furthermore, the reason that Meng Yao and the others found was very difficult to refute. Someone from another race is predicted to be on the heaven ranking? Who is it? Catch him. Those from the alien race must be. The commotion in the Divine Firmament Great Hall grew louder and louder. Meng Ji Yao Xiao and the Shis. Yao Yao. Meng Yao said calmly. I'm sure you've all heard of him. He's quite famous in the Divine Firmament Celestial Realm in recent years. And he has a sky-level sect behind him. It was a Meng. This strange race was from one of the 7 heaven-ranked forces. The Moonlight Sword Immortal smiled and said, Fairy Meng Yao, feel free to speak your mind. I believe that no matter which sky-level sect it is, if they know that this person is of a foreign race, they will not protect him. I'm relieved to hear that, fellow Taoist Moonlight. Meng Yao nodded. This alien race is Su Zimo from Heaven and Earth Academy. Su Zimo had already guessed it, so he was not surprised by Meng Yao's words. But it caused an uproar in the Divine Firmament Hall. Everyone was shocked. Her words were very powerful. Once confirmed, it was enough to destroy or even kill Su Zimo. Yang Ruoxa frowned. He realized that the situation was very bad for Su Zimo. Since Meng Yao dared to say such words, she must be very confident. Although Mo Qing did not say anything, there was a trace of worry in her eyes. How is that possible? Junior brother Su is from the alien race? The Moonlight Sword Immortal looked a little shocked and in disbelief. She seemed to still be defending Su Zimo as she frowned. Fairy Meng Yao, you shouldn't spout such nonsense. It will affect the reputation of our academy quite a bit. Since I dared to say it, I naturally have enough evidence. Meng Yao looked in the direction of the Imperial Wind Monastery. Celestial Immortal Luo Yang, tell us everything you know. Celestial Immortal Luo Yang was already prepared to describe what happened on the Dragon Abyss planet, half true and half false. I do have an impression of what you said. The Moonlight Sword Immortal's words confirmed Celestial Immortal Luo Yang's words. That's right. I can also testify to this. I was on the Dragon Abyss planet at that time. Perfected Immortal Wufeng said in a low voice. Celestial Immortal Luo Yang's description was specious. It created a feeling that Su Zimo had some kind of close connection with the dragons. It was just short of directly saying that Su Zimo was a dragon. The appearance of the azure dragon soul, and even the divine dragon behind it, was rather strange. In fact, this might not be able to prove that there was a connection with Su Zimo. But once such a thing was said, it would cause people to think, be suspicious, and even be suspicious. Moreover, this matter had Zither Immortal Meng Yao, perfected Immortal Wufeng, and the Moonlight Sword Immortal as witnesses. The Moonlight Sword Immortal was also a true disciple of the Qianquan Academy. What can this prove? Yang Ruoshi stood up and shook her head. Let's not talk about whether the Azure Dragon Soul and the Divine Dragon are related to Junior Brother Su. Even if they are, how can it prove that Junior Brother Su is of a foreign race? Everyone's judgment is too arbitrary. Yun Ting thought that Meng Yao and the others could really produce some strong evidence. He did not expect it to be Celestial Immortal Luo Yang's words. Tisk. Yun Ting sneered and looked at perfected Immortal Wufeng. Your mount is a golden ant. According to what you said, you are of the golden ant tribe. Not many people present dared to speak to a perfected immortal like that, or even mock him. Yun Ting happened to be one of them. Although perfected Immortal Wufeng was annoyed, he was wary and could not attack Yun Ting. I'm afraid it's not arbitrary. Perfected Immortal Mu Feng of the Mountain and Sea Immortal Sect said in a low voice. I heard that Su Zimo is proficient in a sound domain mystic technique of dragons. It's extremely powerful. How could he know the Tao of dragons? Not only that, Zhu Wuing said. This person also knows the secret technique of the dragon race, the true dragon's 9 flashes. Zhong Feiyu also stepped forward and said, Seniors, back in the battle at Shura, Su Zimo also used the dragon's nascent soul mystic technique, the reverse scale. I didn't fight with him back then, and left the battle at Shura not because I was afraid of him, but because I sensed that his identity was strange, so I wanted to leave as soon as possible and report this to the sect. In fact, Zhong Feiyu did not recognize the origin of the reverse scale mystic technique at that time. He was indeed scared away by the reverse scale. When he returned to the sect, he searched many ancient books and asked the immortal kings of the sect. Only then did he know the reverse scale mystic technique. Reverse scale? Immortal King Qingyang was surprised. Most cultivators did not know about this nascent soul mystic technique. But as the immortal king, he had heard about this nascent soul mystic technique of the dragons. Even if other races obtained the cultivation method of this technique, they would not be able to use it without the nascent soul of the dragons. In that case, there might be something wrong with Su Zimo's identity. Chapter 2554. Yunju smiled and said, If you think that Su Zimo is a dragon just because of a few dragons' mystic arts, it's too ridiculous. I believe that among the cultivators here, there are many who have grasped the secret arts of other races. In fact, there are even people from our immortal realms who have cultivated the devil path. Could it be that these people are all from different races and belong to the devil path? The logic was very simple, but when it came from the Book Immortal's mouth, it was convincing. The noisy crowd gradually calmed down. Many cultivators even began to reflect. If they followed this standard, they would be beaten up as well. The perfected immortals of the Flying Deity sect, the Great Gene Celestial Kingdom, and the Imperial Wind sect all frowned confused. They were targeting Su Zimo this time, and Yun Ting and Su Zimo were opponents. Logically speaking, Yun Ting should be on their side. But they didn't expect Yun Ting to speak up for Su Zimo. That was fine. After all, young Prince Yun Ting had always been unscrupulous and would always do something shocking. But why did Book Immortal Yunju stand out this time? Second brother, can you speak up for him? Xie Qingqing couldn't help but worry when she saw that Su Zimo was besieged by several major forces. She secretly sent a voice transmission to Xieling. Xieling shook her head slightly and didn't say anything. The situation was getting clearer. Immortal King Qingyang of the Divine Firmament Palace obviously wanted to stay out of it and watch. Among the 7 heaven-level forces, only Book Immortal Yunju of the Zixian Celestial Kingdom stood on Su Zimo's side for the time being. On Zither Immortal Mingyao's side, there were the Flying Deity sect, the Great Gene Celestial Kingdom, and the Imperial Wind sect. True immortal Mu Feng of the Mountain Sea Immortal Sect also wanted to add insult to injury. This meant that among the 7 heaven-level forces, the Flying Deity Sect, the Great Gene Celestial Kingdom, the Imperial Wind Sect, and the Mountain Sea Immortal Sect had formed an alliance. Even if he stood on Qianquan Academy's side, it would be useless. Because Zither Immortal Mengyao was obviously prepared this time. There were more than 30 perfected immortals of the Great Gene Celestial Kingdom, and the Flying Deity Sect alone. If the situation went out of control, and both sides fought, Qianquan Academy wouldn't be able to gain any advantage. Moreover, even though Scholar Immortal Yunju spoke up for him, if a conflict were to break out, it was impossible for Scholar Immortal Yunju to fight with the 4 heaven-ranked forces over an inner court disciple. In other words, the 4 true immortals of the Universe Academy would have to face dozens of true immortals from the Flying Immortal Sect, the Great Gene Celestial Kingdom, the Imperial Wind Monastery, and the Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. Amongst them were Shadowless Sword, Spring Wind Sword, Zither Immortal Dream Pearl, and True Immortal Edgeless. More importantly, Xieling had heard that the relationship between the Moonlight Sword Immortal and Su Zimo was not exactly harmonious. If this was true, no one would be able to protect Su Zimo. It would be difficult for him to escape this calamity. This is no small matter, True Immortal Wufeng said in a deep voice. If an alien race infiltrates the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain and allows them to participate in the Heavenless Tournament, it will be an insult to the Divine Firmament Palace. True Immortal Wufeng's words were even more impressive, directly dragging Divine Firmament's palace into the picture. Immortal King Qingyang's expression didn't change, and he remained silent. Yang Ruoxu said, "You guys have said so much, but you actually don't have any concrete evidence. It's nothing more than your own guesses." Mengyao chuckled and stared at Su Zimo. She said slowly, "It's easy to get evidence. You just have to search his soul, and the truth will be revealed." "No." Mo Qing stood up and scolded softly. She was not good with words, and did not like to argue with others, so she had not said anything earlier. But now, Mengyao and the others were pushing their luck, and wanted to search Su Zimo's soul. This was too much. The Divine Firmament Immortal Gathering had yet to begin, but the 3 fairies were already confronting each other. Yunju sneered. "Mengyao, it's just a groundless guess, and you want to search someone's soul. How arrogant of you. Actually, this is also good for Qianquan Academy." Zhu Wuing said, "If this kid is really an alien race, Qianquan Academy can expel him from the sect sooner." Moonlight Sword Immortal frowned. "Searching his soul is too dangerous. If something goes wrong." "Don't worry, fellow Taoist Moonlight," Mengyao said. "This time, I invited a senior of the sect, Old Man Soul Capturer. He's very knowledgeable in the Essence Soul Tao. Even if he searches someone's soul, it won't harm their Essence Soul." Su Zimo sneered. Not to mention whether he would be harmed if he fell into the hands of Old Man Soul Capturer. Even if a soul search did not harm him, he could not let others search his soul. This was his dignity and his bottom line. It was not that Su Zimo had not thought of summoning Wu Dao's true body. However, Wu Dao's true body was in seclusion to deduce and perfect Wu Dao. He did not want to disturb him. Furthermore, this was Divine Firmament Palace. The Divine Firmament Immortal Emperor was most likely guarding this place. Once the Immortal Emperor was alarmed, it would be difficult for Wu Dao's true body to escape with the hell-suppressing cauldron. More importantly, he was in danger, and Wu Dao's true body had just rushed over. The relationship between the two would be difficult to explain. Mengyao and the others were confident. No matter what choice Su Zimo made, it would be a dead end. If he dared to let Old Man Soul Capturer search his soul, Old Man Soul Capturer could cripple his essence soul with just a little trick. At that time, he could just say that it was an accident, and no one could say anything. Based on Meng Yao's understanding of Su Zimo, he would definitely not let anyone search his soul. Once Su Zimo refused, it would mean that he was guilty, and they would have even more reason to attack. The Moonlight Sword Immortal said with a gratified expression, "That's great. A soul search can also prove Junior Brother Su's innocence and reassure everyone. Junior Brother Su, what do you think?" The two of them looked at each other. Su Zimo caught a hint of smugness in the depths of the Moonlight Sword Immortal's eyes. This is not appropriate. Mo Qing frowned and refused again. Any normal cultivator would agree to such a request. The Moonlight Sword Immortal smiled and continued asking, Junior brother Su, if you have a clear conscience, why are you afraid of having your soul searched? Su Zimo raised his brows slightly and said, Moonlight, I suspect that you're a spy from the demon territory. Let that old man search your soul first to prove your innocence and reassure everyone. Nonsense! The Moonlight Sword Immortal shouted. Don't be agitated. If you have a clear conscience, why are you afraid of having your soul searched? Su Zimo asked with a calm expression. These words were thrown right back at the Moonlight Sword Immortal. The Moonlight Sword Immortal was speechless for a moment. Her eyes were sharp, and her expression was ugly. Juing said coldly, What a sharp tongue. I think he's just guilty. That's right. Perfected Immortal Wufeng narrowed his eyes slightly and said, In my opinion, the bigger picture is more important. We should capture him first and search his soul directly. How dare you? Mo Qing took out her natal drawing book and flipped it open, ready to tear it down at any moment. She said in a deep voice, You guys are so rude and unreasonable. Do you really think that there's no one in the Qingquan Academy? Yang Ruoxu was also wary and stood side by side with Mo Qing, protecting Su Zimo behind them. All of a sudden, the Moonlight Sword Immortal attacked Mo Qing from behind. A few wisps of sword qi rushed into Mo Qing's body, sealing her Dao fruit and trapping her on the spot, unable to move. Mo Qing did not expect that someone from the academy would attack her from behind. She was caught off guard and was restrained instantly. At the same time, the other perfected immortal of the academy, Chun Xian, also launched a sneak attack on Yang Ruoxu. He took out a rope and trapped the latter's body, sealing his true essence. In the blink of an eye, the painting immortal Mo Qing and Yang Ruoxu were restrained by the Moonlight Sword Immortal, and the situation changed. Chapter 2555. This sudden turn of events caused an uproar. The situation had far exceeded everyone's expectations. Unexpectedly, before Meng Yao and the rest could make a move, the Qingquan Academy would have an internal conflict. The Moonlight Sword Immortal had made a move and restrained Mo Qing. The Green Sun Immortal King watched this scene with interest and a smile on his face. It seemed that the Zither Immortal, Meng Yao, and the rest had indeed planned this for a long time and came prepared. This time, they wanted to completely kill Su Zimo. It was really interesting to cause such a huge commotion for a Heaven Immortal. The Green Sun Immortal King still had no intention of making a move. The current situation was completely one-sided. On Su Zimo's side, even the only two perfected immortals who supported him from the Qingquan Academy were restrained by the Moonlight Sword Immortal and the rest. As for the Zishuan Immortal Kingdom's Book Immortal, Yunju, under normal circumstances, Book Immortal Yunju would have retreated after seeing this situation. Moonlight, what are you doing? Mo Qing was shocked and angry as she questioned loudly. She even omitted the honorific senior brother. It was obvious that she was furious. The Moonlight Sword Immortal's expression was normal as she said gently, Junior sister, don't be angry. I'm doing this for the Academy's safety. If Su Zimo is not of a foreign race, then he is still a disciple of the Academy and our junior brother. But if he is of a foreign race or has any connection with a foreign race, as the top disciple of the Academy, I can only clean up the mess for the Academy. Moonlight, do you know what you're doing? Although Yang Ruoxu could not move, her expression was fierce as she shouted, You're working with outsiders to harm the Academy's fellow disciples. Junior brother Yang, you're exaggerating. The Moonlight Sword Immortal's expression was indifferent, and her tone gradually turned cold. If Su Zimo is proven to be innocent after the soul search, I will seek justice for him. In fact, the Moonlight Sword Immortal Meng Yao and the rest were already prepared for many possibilities. If Su Zimo accepted the soul search, the old man soul catcher would secretly destroy Su Zimo. At that time, the Moonlight Sword Immortal would step forward and kill the old man soul capturer, not giving him any chance to explain himself. In this way, if he avenged Su Zimo, and even killed a true immortal, it would be very difficult for others to blame him. Second brother, what should we do now? Xie Qingqing asked anxiously through voice transmission. Xie Ling sighed softly and said, Su Zimo has no chance. After all, the one he offended is the zither immortal Ming Yao. Now that he's in the Qingkuan Academy, even the Moonlight Sword Immortal wants to get rid of him. There's no way others can protect him. Actually, there are many things that can't be blamed on him. It's just that he was born in the lower realms, so he carries some sort of original sin with him. Xie Qingqing was confused by Xie Ling's last sentence. Xie Ling continued. Haven't you noticed that this Su Zimo is somewhat similar to a person from hundreds of thousands of years ago? Feng Cantillon. Xie Qingqing immediately thought of the Thunder Emperor and blurted out. Xie Ling nodded and said, to be precise, his potential is greater than Feng Santian's. The Divine Firmament Palace also doesn't want to see another Feng Cantillon rise. He has only ascended for a few thousand years, and his foundation is too shallow. The Zither Immortal Ming Yao, the Moonlight Sword Immortal, and Shadowless are all famous true immortals. It can be said that these people can do anything they want in the Divine Firmament Immortal domain. With so many of them working together to deal with a Heaven Immortal, how can he possibly survive? At the Qingkuan Academy, the Moonlight Sword Immortal said calmly, Junior Brother Su, whether you are innocent or not, the truth will be revealed after a soul search. Please. A bunch of *T true immortals. They are even more vicious and hypocritical than the true demons of the demonic domain. Yin Ting cursed when he saw this scene. Even though he was not involved, he felt suffocated. What foreign race? What soul search? Ming Yao, Moonlight, and this group of true immortals clearly wanted to force Su Zimo to death in front of everyone. Yin Ting knew that whether it was him or Su Zimo, they would not yield, compromise, or back down in the face of such demands. And once Su Zimo resisted, this group of true immortals would have a reason to attack. Yin Ting's anger surged, but he knew that there was nothing he could do. He was a peerless genius of the Divine Firmament Immortal domain, but he was only a Stage 9 Heaven Immortal now. He could not help at all. At this moment, a trace of sadness rose in Yin Ting's heart. He felt that Su Zimo was not worth it. This kind of Heaven and Earth Academy, this kind of Divine Firmament Immortal domain, was not worthy of him. Yin Ting took out a jar of strong wine from his storage bag and handed it to Su Zimo. He said loudly, Su Zimo, I can't help you today, but don't worry, you won't die in vain. When I become a true immortal, I will find those *T true immortals who targeted you today one by one and kill them all to give you an explanation. When these words were spoken, many cultivators were moved and their faces were filled with shock. The Divine Firmament Hall became much quieter. No one had expected Yin Ting to say something like that in front of so many people. Yin Ting used his Stage 9 Heaven Immortal cultivation to threaten the Moonlight Sword Immortal, Zither Immortal Ming Yao, Ju Wuying, and the other top true immortals. Not only did everyone feel Yin Ting's anger, unwillingness, and killing intent, but they also felt a trace of sadness. Everyone looked at the two young men in the middle of the hall with puzzled expressions. Weren't these two enemies like fire and water, tit for tat? Why would Yin Ting help Su Zimo? Why would Yin Ting say such harsh words for Su Zimo? He was even willing to offend so many sects and factions and so many true immortals? These people did not understand. This was the appreciation between the two top geniuses. Yin Ting wanted to defeat Su Zimo, but he respected Su Zimo more. He respected this opponent who could fight with him. To others, Yin Ting's words were a threat, but Su Zimo understood. This was Yin Ting's promise to him. Since you forced Su Zimo to his death today, I, Yin Ting, will find you one by one in the future and kill you all. Su Zimo took the jar of liquor from Yin Ting's hands and exchanged glances with Yin Ting. Cheers! The two of them opened the clay seal of the wine jar at the same time. The wine jars collided, and they drank heartily. Crack! After a while, the two of them finished the wine in one gulp and smashed the wine jar heavily on the ground. Su Zimo pulled up his sleeve and wiped the wine from his lips. Yin Ting, thank you. However, I will take revenge for today myself in the future. At that moment, Su Zimo had decided that if Qinglian's real body died, the moment Wu Dao's real body came out of seclusion would be the moment Zither Immortal Mengyao, the Moonlight Sword Immortal, and the rest died. At that moment, no one could understand the meaning behind Su Zimo's words. They only thought that Su Zimo's mind was muddled, and he said it casually. After all, if he died, there would be no future. How could he take revenge? Only Book Immortal Yunju's heart skipped a beat. She understood the killing intent in Su Zimo's words. She knew that Su Zimo was prepared to let Araki Takashi make a move. Chapter 2556. Mengyao said indifferently, Yunju, it's time to teach your younger brother a lesson. Be careful of what you say. Threatening a perfected immortal? Perfected immortal Wufeng harumphed coldly. If not for the fact that he's the Duke of Zhixian Immortal Kingdom, we would have enough reason to kill him. Yin Ting looked at perfected immortal Wufeng and the others and grinned. Are you guys afraid? When I become a perfected immortal, you guys can wash your necks clean. The perfected immortals felt a chill run down their spines. To be fair, given Yin Ting's talent and potential, he would definitely become a perfected immortal in the future. When Yin Ting became a perfected immortal and came knocking on their door, not many of them would be able to stop him. Moonlight Sword Immortal frowned. Don't get entangled with the junior. Search Su Zimo's soul first and find out his background. Old Man Soul Capturer let out a strange laugh and leaped, charging towards Su Zimo. Swoosh! A figure flashed past and suddenly blocked Old Man Soul Capturer. That person did not do anything and merely waved her hand gently. Old Man Soul Capturer's expression changed starkly as he sensed a terrifying aura and hurriedly retreated. Everyone focused their attention and saw that the person who attacked was Book Immortal Yunju. Fairy Yunju, what's the meaning of this? Perfected Immortal Wufeng asked with a frown. Nothing, Yunju said indifferently. I just can't stand you guys bullying others. Mingyao's expression was cold as she said, Yunju, what happened today has nothing to do with you. Don't meddle in other people's business. Yunju raised her head and met Mingyao's gaze. She did not back down at all and said slowly, Today, I insist on meddling in other people's business. Whoever dares to step forward will be my enemy. Don't blame me for being merciless. Once these harsh words were spoken, it instantly caused a stir in the crowd. No one expected that the Zither Immortal and Book Immortal would confront each other during the Divine Firmament meeting, and even look like they were about to fight. Even Yin Ting was frowning. He did not want Su Zimo to die in such a humiliating manner. However, when he saw his sister rush out to protect Su Zimo, he felt a little sour in his heart. He had long realized that his sister seemed to have a close relationship with Su Zimo, but he didn't expect that the two of them had already developed to this stage. Could it be, Su Zimo was touched? He used his divine sense to speak to Yunju. Yunju, you don't have to do this. You can't stop them all by yourself. In his heart, he was already prepared. If Qinglian's true body was killed, Wu Dao's true body would launch a crazy revenge. Yunju still did not retreat. She sent a voice transmission. I'm not only stepping forward for you, but also for the injustice in my heart. They've gone too far. In fact, when Yunju was young, she liked to fight for justice and could not bear to see injustice in the world. As a result, she offended many sects and forces and was later confined in the library. Over the years, Yunju had been cultivating her body and mind. She had read a lot of books and rarely showed herself in public. However, she had always adhered to the righteousness in her heart. She had never forgotten it. Otherwise, she wouldn't have saved Su Zimo back in the Coiling Dragon Mountain Range. She wouldn't have scolded true Immortal Mirror Moon. You're bullying the weak. How shameless. Right now, her relationship with Su Zimo was no longer the same as before. All the more she couldn't sit by and do nothing. If she retreated today, she wouldn't be able to get over the hurdle in her heart. Mengyao smiled coldly and nodded to Old Man Soul Catcher, indicating for him to continue forward and ignore Immortal Yunju. She did not believe that Yunju, as the princess of the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom, would make enemies with so many perfected immortal experts for an academy disciple? Old Man Soul Catcher hesitated for a moment. However, when he recalled that there were dozens of perfected immortals behind him, as well as experts such as Zither Immortal Meng Yao, Zhu Wuying and perfected immortal Wu Feng, he regained his confidence and continued charging towards Su Zimo. Old Man Soul Catcher swept past Yunju swiftly, and she did not move at all. Meng Yao, perfected immortal Wu Feng, and the others exchanged glances and smiled, relaxing. Fairy Yunju, you're wise. You, perfected immortal Wu Feng chuckled. Before he could finish, the situation changed and his smile froze on his face. Swash! Old Man Soul Catcher swept past Yunju and arrived before Su Zimo. Before he could make a move, a jade brush appeared in Yunju's hand. Without even looking, she swiped her hand behind her. The void seemed to have been sliced into two by that jade brush. Old Man Soul Catcher's body froze, and his gaze froze. The life force in his body drained rapidly, and half of his head seemed to have been sliced off by a sharp weapon. His essence spirit was destroyed on the spot, and he was dead. This was an emperor weapon that Yunju obtained in the Avicii Hell previously. It was extremely sharp and terrifying. Psst! Seeing this scene, all the cultivators gasped. A perfected immortal was dead, and he was killed by immortal Yunju. At that moment, everyone truly felt Yunju's determination and killing intent. Previously, everyone found it strange that Yunju was willing to speak up for Su Zimo. However, they could still accept it. But now, immortal Yunju was willing to fight against the top perfected immortals of the various major factions for Su Zimo. That was completely beyond everyone's imagination. One had to know that in such a tense situation, the slightest move would affect the entire situation. Once they started fighting, it would be very difficult to have any room to maneuver. Yunju's attack this time round to kill Old Man Soul Catcher was equivalent to leaving no way out for herself. She wanted to fight Immortal Zither, Meng Yao, and the others to the end. Immortal Yunju was way too decisive. Old Man Soul Catcher was killed on the spot before he could react. Actually, none of the four fairies are weak, said Yi Futian. What do you guys think is the relationship between Fairy Yunju and Su Zimo? Judging from Fairy Yunju's stance, why does it feel like there's something between her and Su Zimo? It's indeed a little strange. Even if Yin Ting was in danger, it wouldn't be as bad. TSK. I wonder how many lifetimes Su Zimo from this academy is blessed to have the painting immortal and book immortal willing to stand up for him. The cultivators in the Divine Firmament Hall were in a heated discussion. Immortal King Qingyang was still sitting in his chair. Even if a perfected immortal died, he had no intention of interfering. Meng Yao's expression turned cold as she said coldly, Yunju, are you trying to make an enemy out of us? If that's the case, don't blame us for being impolite. The Moonlight Sword Immortal shook her head slightly and said, Fellow Taoist Yunju, you can't protect Su Zimo alone. Why waste your energy? I'll do my best. Yunju's tone was indifferent but extremely firm. Meng Yao and the others had brought so many perfected immortal experts precisely because they were worried that such accidents would happen. Therefore, even if they saw Yunju appear, everyone was already prepared. Perfected immortal Wu Feng took out his heavy sword and said loudly, I've long heard of immortal Yunju's great name. Today is a rare opportunity to learn from her. Zhu Wuying stood out without saying a word. Sword Immortal Spring Breeze chuckled and drew his long sword from his waist. He pointed it at Yunju from afar. The sword moved with the wind and trembled slightly. Meng Yao sat down cross-legged and took out her zither from her storage bag. Haha, I'll join in the fun too. Perfected Immortal Mu Feng of the mountain and see Immortal Sect laughed loudly. In the blink of an eye, all the top perfected immortals stood out and surrounded Immortal Yunju. Thank you for the 50,000 book coins tip. I have another alliance leader for this book. I'll update tomorrow. End of chapter. Chapter 2557. Zither Immortal Meng Yao, Spring Breeze Sword Immortal, Shadowless, True Immortal Wu Feng, and True Immortal Mu Feng were the top experts among the True Immortals. They had all reached the 4th level of the True Immortal realm, the Dongxu stage. Moreover, there were dozens of perfected immortals eyeing them. Although no one had seen Book Immortal Yunju fight, the four immortals were equally famous. Other than the chess immortal, who was recognized as the most powerful, the other three immortals were about the same. It was impossible for the Book Immortal to protect Su Zimo from such a siege. Spring Breeze Sword Immortal, Shadowless, True Immortal Wufeng, and True Immortal Mufeng stood in four directions, surrounding the Book Immortal and Su Zimo. Zither Immortal Meng Yao looked like she was not involved, but she sat cross-legged with her zither in front of her. She could join the battle at any time with a wave of her fingertips and unleash a terrifying sonic attack. Yunju held a jade brush in her hand with a serious expression. Buzz! Meng Yao plucked the zither gently with her fingertips, and a strand of zither music suddenly rang out. The atmosphere in the Divine Firmament Palace suddenly changed. It was somber and bleak, as if thousands of soldiers and horses were charging in. This zither music was also the signal to attack. Sword Immortal Wufeng, Spring Breeze Sword Immortal, and True Immortal Mufeng attacked at the same time, charging toward Yunju. Sword Immortal Wufeng's heavy sword, edgeless, was heavy and powerful. He swung his arm, and the Dao fruit behind his head shone with rays of light as true essence gathered. Even without using any Dharma spells, just this slash alone was enough to unleash an unparalleled power. Even if there was a mountain in front of him, it would be split in half by this slash. Spring Breeze Sword Immortal's longsword was as soft as a willow. It moved with the wind and was unpredictable, but the sword's range was huge. It enveloped both Yunju and Su Zimo. True Immortal Mufeng held a huge saber in his hand. When he waved it, the saber light was so cold that it was as if there were raging waves crashing against one's face. It was suffocating. The three perfected immortals only casually attacked, but they already had earth-shattering power. Shadowless did not move, but his figure had almost disappeared into the void. He was as light as a wisp of smoke, waiting for the right opportunity to strike. Once Shadowless sword attacked, it would be even more dangerous. The situation Yunju was facing was more than she imagined. Not only did she have to block the attacks, she also had to protect Su Zimo from the force attacks. As a result, the pressure on her increased exponentially. Yunju activated her Dao fruit, and a halo of light bloomed from the back of her head. Her quintessential essence condensed on the jade brush, and she stabbed it at the three true immortals. Clang! Yunju's jade brush collided with the Spring Breeze sword first. However, the Spring Breeze sword was as soft as the wind. As soon as it touched the brush, the sword trembled and was about to slash past the jade brush. Feng was and Mu was had. And Mu was. Exceptional divine ability, wondrous blossom. Yunju's jade brush stabbed 3 times in a row, and 3 lotus flowers appeared, defending against the attacks of the 3 perfected immortals. The first time the 3 true immortals attacked, they failed to achieve anything. A wave of exclamations came from the crowd outside the main hall. I did not expect that Fairy Yunju would be able to unleash such battle prowess, with just a casual attack despite looking frail. She is not at a disadvantage, even though she is fighting against 3 people alone. None of the 4 fairies are easy to deal with. I heard that even Painting Fairy, who is the weakest, is not easy to deal with. What's so good about Painting Fairy? Her cultivation is at level 3 of the true self realm Kongming. She can't be compared to Zither Fairy and Book Fairy. That's not necessarily true. Didn't you see that Moonlight Sword Immortal restrained Painting Fairy before she attacked? Another person analyzed. I reckon that the Moonlight Sword Immortal is still wary of Fairy Mo Qing. The 4 fairies are famous today, not only because of their beauty, but also because they are the best of the best among the perfected immortals. Listening to the discussions around him, Xieling's expression was calm and indifferent. Book Fairy was indeed very powerful. She might even be more powerful than Spring Wind Sword. But even so, Book Fairy Yunju was alone. She could not turn the tide. The 3 perfected immortals had not used their full strength. Please. Also, Shadowless was still looking for an opportunity to attack at any time. Zither Fairy Mengyao had not attacked either. If the 2 of them attacked, Book Fairy would definitely lose. As expected of the Book Immortal, your skills are not shallow. Spring Wind Sword Immortal chuckled and flicked the sword. The sword vibrated and hummed. The three perfected immortals attacked again. This time, the three perfected immortals attacked more fiercely. They did not hold back. Behind Yunju's head, the halo from the fruit of Tao grew bigger and bigger. Yunju held a jade brush in her hand and quickly wrote a few ancient words in the air. Kill, destroy, break, bang, shake, break, break. These 7 words were not from the civilization of this world. They were filled with a wild and ancient aura. Every stroke contained a mysterious and powerful force. The 7 ancient words scattered and rushed toward the 3 perfected immortals. At this moment, Shadowless attacked. The sword went straight for the back of Su Zimo's head. Su Zimo's scalp tingled, and he was alarmed. Yunju also noticed the commotion. She narrowed her eyes and threw the jade brush in her hand at Shadowless' sword. Zhu Wuing's figure suddenly stopped and disappeared again. This was just a feint. When he appeared again, he was already at Yunju's side. He stabbed out with his sword silently, and without a trace. Freeze! Yunju activated her Fruit of Tao and shouted. This was not the immobilization technique. It was the supreme superpower, Time Stop. Shadowless's body stopped for a moment, and he broke free from the restraints of this supreme superpower. Although the effect on him was negligible, this momentary delay gave Yunju the opportunity to step forward. She stretched out her slender fingers, which were as sharp as the tip of a pen, and stabbed toward Shadowless's forehead. The tip of his finger shone brightly. Before he could touch Shadowless, a trickle of blood had already seeped out from between the latter's eyebrows. At this moment, a trace of confusion arose in Yunju's heart. Shadowless sword of the 3 sword immortals seemed to be weaker than before. If it was Shadowless sword at its peak, she should not be able to injure it. Yunju did not know that Shadowless had 60,000 years of lifespan, severed by Su Zimo's instant splendor back in Grey Cloud Mountain Range. In reality, Shadowless's combat strength was no longer at its peak. Right then, Meng Yao's zither sounded once more. Yunju frowned slightly and felt a piercing pain in her eyes. Even her arms trembled slightly. Shadowless's eyes lit up, and he seized the opportunity to attack. Without a trace, without a sound, without a trace. Ching! Yunju retreated hurriedly. However, she was still a step too late, and was injured by Shadowless sword. A wound opened on her abdomen and fresh blood flowed, dyeing her white robes red instantly. Meng Yao sat at the periphery the entire time, and seemed to be uninvolved. However, the moment she attacked, her zither music would decide the direction of the entire situation. Both parties had just exchanged a few rounds, and Yunju was already injured. Yunju, this is just a warning to you, Meng Yao said indifferently. The next time, you won't just be injured. Humph. Yunju was fearless and sneered. That's all there is to the zither immortal. To think that I've been on par with you all these years. What a joke. Chapter 2558. In fact, many of the surrounding cultivators also felt that the zither immortal's action was a little too excessive and disgraceful. However, they had nothing to do with Su Zimo. What did Su Zimo's life have to do with them? Moreover, Su Zimo's reputation had been too great over the years. Many cultivators gloated when they saw Su Zimo suffer such a calamity. Most of the time, there was no reason for evil. It might even be because they couldn't bear to see others doing well. Break! At this moment, a soft shout came from the direction of Qingquan Academy. Rays of light burst out from Emo Qing's body. She expelled the sword qi that the Moonlight Sword Immortal had sealed in her body. Immediately after, Emo Qing activated her primordial spirit, and her Tao fruit bloomed with halos. She broke free from the ropes on her body, and rushed out to Su Zimo's side in a flash. The Moonlight Sword Immortal frowned, somewhat surprised. Logically speaking, with Emo Qing's cultivation, she shouldn't be able to break free from his seal. It seemed that this junior sister's cultivation had improved greatly over the years. Senior sister, Su Zimo called out. Before he could continue, Emo Qing interrupted him and said, "Don't be afraid. The disciples of Qingquan Academy aren't at the point where they can be bullied by others." As soon as she finished speaking, A picture book appeared in Mo Qing's hand. This picture book was her natal Dharma treasure. After cultivating for so many years, she had only drawn a dozen pages. There were all kinds of ferocious beasts and powerful creatures on it. Now, Mo Qing's palm exerted force, and the picture book was instantly torn to shreds. Countless shreds of paper floated in the air. Su Zimo was shocked. He knew that senior sister Mo Qing wouldn't use this picture book so easily. That was because every painting on it had the Tao and charm of the creatures in it. Senior sister Mo Qing might even spend thousands, or tens of thousands of years on each painting. Once the paintings were torn apart and taken out, the creatures in the paintings would also appear. Their combat strength was no different from when she saw them. However, once torn apart, it also meant that the paintings would completely disappear. Therefore, Mo Qing wouldn't tear the painting apart unless she had no other choice. Back then in the Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, when she confronted the zither immortal Meng Yao, she only tore a painting to show her determination. But now, Mo Qing had torn the entire album to shreds. It was obvious how furious she was. Seeing this scene, Yunju sighed in her heart. Mo Qing's action was equivalent to releasing all the time, energy, and blood she had spent all these years. What kind of courage and decisiveness did this require? Above the divine firmament palace, those floating scraps of paper were filled with a terrifying aura, as if some peerless evil spirit was about to descend here. Roar! 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 On the battlefield, a series of dragon roars and tiger roars suddenly sounded deafening. A slender divine dragon covered in scales, with sharp claws and fangs, was the first to appear in front of everyone. It hovered in the air and roared at the sky. Immediately after, accompanied by a phoenix cry, a divine phoenix was born from the flames. Its feathers were sparkling and translucent red, like iron arrows that had been burned red. Under everyone's gaze, terrifying ferocious beasts and powerful beings descended above the divine firmament palace. There were the ferocious beasts Taowu and Taotai, as well as the immortal beasts by Zai and Taowu. There were even some beings that had never been seen before. They had the faces of humans and the bodies of beasts, with a pair of wings and a ferocious aura. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 terrifying ferocious beasts and powerful beings descended, surrounding Mo Qing, and the other two with murderous intent. Go! Mo Qing did not hesitate and directly gave the order. More than 10 ferocious beasts charged directly toward Meng Yao, perfected immortal Wufeng, and the others. What are you waiting for? Attack together! Meng Yao shouted softly. The Flying Immortal Sect, and the Great Jin Celestial Kingdom, had been planning this for a long time. Dozens of perfected immortals had come, precisely because they were worried that such an unforeseen event would happen. The dozens of perfected immortals stepped forward to meet these ferocious beasts. Meng Yao looked at the Moonlight Sword Immortal not far away, and sent a voice transmission with her divine consciousness. Taoist Moonlight, this is your mistake. You should settle it. Don't worry. The Moonlight Sword Immortal's expression was calm as she sent a voice transmission. Leave Mo Qing to me. You guys hurry up and kill that Su Zimo, lest something unexpected happens if this drags on for too long. With that, the Moonlight Sword Immortal also stepped into the battlefield. I didn't expect that the Divine Firmament Convention would cause such a huge commotion before it even started. All 3 Sword Immortals have entered the battlefield. 3 Sword Immortals and 3 fairies have gathered and are fighting. Such a scene is simply unprecedented. Who would have thought that this level of battle was actually caused by a Heaven Immortal? Actually, I'm quite envious of this Su Zimo. To be able to have 2 fairies personally enter the battlefield to protect him. This treatment, TSK. The battlefield was in chaos. More than 10 ferocious beasts and dozens of perfected immortals were fighting fiercely, causing the heavens to tremble and the earth to rend. The cultivators outside were in high spirits, as they discussed animatedly. Junior sister, you shouldn't have intervened. The Moonlight Sword Immortal looked at Mo Qing with some disappointment, and shook her head slightly. You're too muddle-headed. Why would you do this for Su Zimo, a servant? Don't call me junior sister. You're not worthy of being the top disciple of Qingkuan Academy. Mo Qing looked coldly at the Moonlight Sword Immortal. A large part of her anger was because of the Moonlight Sword Immortal. As the top disciple of Qingquan Academy, not only did the Moonlight Sword Immortal not protect her fellow disciples when they were being bullied by other forces, but she even attacked her and Yang Ruoxu. Mo Qing was indeed a little naive, but she was not stupid. She could tell that the Moonlight Sword Immortal was very likely involved in today's matter. Ha! The Moonlight Sword Immortal was so angry that she laughed. If I'm not worthy, do you think Su Zimo is? Moreover, his background is unknown, and he might even be of a foreign race. No need to say more. Let's fight. Mo Qing's tone was cold. I've cultivated in Qingquan Academy for many years, but I've never fought with you. Today, I can ask for your advice. Junior sister, you should know that I don't want to hurt you. The Moonlight Sword Immortal was a little helpless and shook her head slightly. Mo Qing could not be bothered to talk to him anymore. She directly took out the gods, ghosts, immortals, and demon painting and unfolded it in front of her. There were 4 figures drawn on the painting scroll. 3 of them were drawn with dim strokes and were blurry. She could not see the origins of the 3 figures clearly, but the figure on the far left had golden hair and blue eyes. He was extremely handsome, and as his chi and blood rose, his entire body emitted a golden light. His eyes were like torches and could not be looked at directly. A Protoss. There were 4 images in the gods, ghosts, immortals, and demon painting. They were the deity statue, the ghost statue, the immortal statue, and the demon statue. Now Mo Qing had only comprehended the deity statue. Therefore, only one figure was completely revealed on the painting scroll. According to her estimation, if she could comprehend one more deity statue, she could possibly enter the 4th level of True Self realm, the Dongxu stage. So you really did obtain the gods, ghosts, immortals, and demon painting. No wonder you could break free from my sword chi imprisonment. The Moonlight Sword Immortal suddenly understood. He paused for a moment, then suddenly smiled, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. All right, I'll let you see my Moonlight Sword today. Buzz! The Moonlight Sword had already arrived in the Moonlight Sword Immortal's palm. The sword exuded a brilliance as bright as the moon. One look and one could tell that it was not an ordinary item. Chapter 2559. Mo Qing's divine will moved, and the statue of the gods, ghosts, immortals, and demon painting walked out of the painting and became a real Protoss with flesh and blood. This Protoss's cultivation was exactly the same as Mo Qing's. They were both at level 3 True Self, the Kongming stage. Interesting. The Moonlight Sword Immortal smirked. However, even if the real Protoss comes, he won't be able to block my Moonlight Sword. Swoosh. The Moonlight Sword Immortal moved and charged at the Protoss summoned by Mo Qing. The Moonlight Sword danced in the air, and in the blink of an eye, it stabbed hundreds of times. The Protoss circulated his blood chi and attacked continuously. However, he was still barehanded and could not block the Moonlight Sword's attack. Very soon, this divine race being was already covered in wounds all over. The Moonlight Sword was a pure young spirit treasure of the 9th tribulation. It could even pierce through the Protoss's body. Rumble! The Protoss summoned his bloodline phenomenon. An ancient and mysterious pyramid appeared behind him, with billions of living beings prostrating beneath it. The statue of the gods, ghosts, immortals, and demon painting was so lifelike that it could even summon its bloodline phenomenon. Oomph! The Moonlight Sword Immortal sneered, and wiped the Moonlight Sword with her finger. The Moonlight Sword shone brightly, and suddenly released a dazzling sword ray. Moonlight slash. Boom! The sword ray collided with the Protoss's bloodline phenomenon. After a slight pause, the Protoss's bloodline phenomenon was pierced through by the Moonlight Sword's sword ray and collapsed. After all, the Protoss's cultivation was still a level lower. Moreover, the secret technique that the Moonlight Sword Immortal had just used was one of his killer moves. Mo Qing's expression was calm. She took out an ink brush from her storage bag and activated her Dao fruit. Her true essence condensed at the tip of the brush. With her true essence as ink and the void as paper, she casually drew a few strokes on the paper and quickly drew a soldier riding a war horse and holding a long spear. This soldier was also at the true first realm, but only at the first level of the true first realm. With a thought from Mo Qing, the soldier materialized in the void and charged towards the Moonlight Sword Immortal. Mo Qing drew a few more strokes in the void, outlining a few divine weapons. They all materialized as though they were real. They also charged towards the Moonlight Sword Immortal. While the Moonlight Sword Immortal and Mo Qing were fighting, True Immortal Edgeless, True Immortal Chunfeng, and True Immortal Cleansing Peak attacked Yunju once more. Shadowless disappeared again. This time, there were dozens of true immortals and dozens of ferocious beasts. Under the cover of the chaotic battle, no one could discover his tracks at all. This kind of threat that could erupt at any time was the most terrifying. Meng Yao gently placed her fingers on the zither, as she looked at Yunju and Mo Qing with a mocking expression. It was only a matter of time before these two fairies who were equally as famous as her were defeated. Today, Su Zimo would definitely die. After all, the Book Immortal was one of the 4 great fairies, and the princess of the Zixien Immortal Kingdom. Spring Breeze Sword Immortal, and the others still had some misgivings. Otherwise, the Book Immortal might not have been able to hold on until now. Suddenly, a ghostly figure suddenly appeared behind Su Zimo. Shadowless attacked again, stabbing towards the back of Su Zimo's head. It was silent, and did not even reveal any killing intent. Shadowless could hide from Su Zimo's 5 senses, but it could not hide from his spirit perception. The moment Shadowless appeared, Su Zimo was shocked. He did not have time to think, and wanted to use the primeval body again to escape from Shadowless's attack. As for Yunju and Mo Qing, they both realized that Su Zimo was in danger and wanted to help. Unfortunately, Mo Qing was entangled by the Moonlight Sword Immortal and was completely at a disadvantage. As for Yunju, she was surrounded by True Immortal Chunfeng and True Immortal Chunfeng. She was also struggling and could not escape. Just as the two of them were burning with anxiety, Meng Yao's zither rang out without warning. Clang! The zither's murderous sound disturbed one's mind. The timing of the zither's sound was simply too exquisite. When Yunju heard the zither's sound, her ears hurt, and she was slightly dazed. 3 more wounds appeared on her body and blood gushed out. On the other side, the Moonlight Sword Immortal's eyes lit up and she shouted, "Junior sister, you've lost." Not only Mo Qing, but even the summoned Protoss was affected by Meng Yao's zither sound. The Moonlight Sword Immortal took advantage of the situation and cut the Protoss in half. Without the help of the statue, Mo Qing was no match for the Moonlight Sword Immortal. In the blink of an eye, Yunju and Mo Qing were already in danger. They could not even protect themselves, let alone save Su Zimo. In the face of Shadowless's attack, Su Zimo wanted to use the primeval body to escape. However, he could also hear the sound of the zither. His body couldn't help but tremble. However, this momentary delay was more than enough for a top-notch assassin like Shadowless. From beginning to end, Zither Immortal Meng Yao did not join the fight. However, every time she played the zither, the entire battle situation would be changed. A cold smile appeared on Shadowless's face. It was as if he could already see Su Zimo's head being pierced by his sword. Su Zimo is dead. Xialing shook her head slightly inside. Perhaps this was fate. Although Su Zimo had escaped Shadowless's attack once, he would not be able to escape a second time. Yang Ruoxu clenched her fists, and her eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Even Immortal King Green Sun thought that Su Zimo was dead for sure. Suddenly, he frowned and looked to the side with a changed expression. Whoosh! A black light pierced into the battlefield. It was so fast that it instantly collided with the Shadowless sword. The Shadowless sword was supposed to be invisible. With the help of light and the environment, it could perfectly hide the sword. It could even fool the heavens and the sea and block the 5 senses. It was difficult for others to detect it. However, not only did this black light hit the Shadowless sword accurately, but it also completely exposed the Shadowless sword. Cries of surprise rang out from the crowd. Someone could actually break Shadowless's attack. That was really impressive. In fact, the bystanders did not know that Shadowless was shocked at this moment. That black light had not only hit his Shadowless sword. The power that exploded from the black light was extremely strong. It had even passed through the Shadowless sword into his body. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels had all been severely shaken. What a strong power! Shadowless was secretly shocked. He swallowed a mouthful of blood that had already surged to his mouth. Zemo quickly took the opportunity to escape from the Shadowless sword. He looked back with lingering fear. Thud! At this moment, the black light that hit the Shadowless sword fell to the ground with a crisp sound beside Shadowless's feet. Zemo, Shadowless, and the other cultivators looked over instinctively. That black light was actually a flat and round black stone. It looked very ordinary. They looked like black chess pieces in a game of chess. Zemo's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly thought of someone. When Shadowless, Ming Yao, and the others saw this black stone, their expressions changed drastically. They clearly recognized the origin of this black stone. She's here too. Guessing the identity of the person who came, the Moonlight Sword Immortal felt a headache. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.